Chapter 808. Permethaz's path. The strength of the Haruka continued rotating as Lin Feng's body emitted a dazzling light containing an incredible strength. Good and evil were fusing together. In Lin Feng's head, Buddha and the demon were facing each other in a gigantic field. In the past, Lin Feng used to think that Buddha and the demon were enemies locked in a never-ending battle. But now Lin Feng realized that the Buddha and the demon could fuse together to create a three-body entity. Lin Feng continued his visualizations, which seemed to be extremely beneficial to him. Finally, after a long time, the strength of the Haruka stopped rotating. Lin Feng opened his eyes as both good and evil lights twinkled in his eyes. Haruka's strength 9,000 rotations. Now, using only my physical strength, I can kill people at the top of the Xianqi layer, whispered Lin Feng, looking excited. The great emperor created those statues, but just like real ones, they could bring him great benefits. He studied one and his sword intent leveled up to 7. Then he studied another one, was now able to make his Haruka's strength revolve 9,000 times. Boom boom boom. The hall started shaking as if it was about to collapse. They weren't the only ones who could sense it. Everybody in the palace could sense it. The entire emperor's palace was shaking. What was happening? Boom boom boom. Terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the air. Those sounds were piercing through people's eardrums. The palace continued trembling as the statues in front of Lin Feng were collapsing. Kakacha. Shi Huang and the 3 live sovereign statues broke first and turned into ashes. The demoniac emperor's statue showed some cracks. Lin Feng looked at the statue and visualized the eternal one again. How glorious. Lin Feng wanted to reach the clouds too. Maybe he would someday. Kacha. Another sound resonated as the demoniac emperor's statue broke as well. It then became calm in the hall again as the heavy door opened slowly. There were some people outside. The leader of the group looked at Lin Feng and Tang Yu, then said, "Did you steal the treasures?" They had just entered the room but could sense the terrifying sword qi. They felt like they were suffocating. He came with a few friends to face Lin Feng and Tang Yu. Lin Feng turned his head, looking calm. He then looked at the carvings on the wall again. He sighed and said, "The 4 statues broke already. We will never learn from them again." After that, he started bombarding the wall with sword qi. Rumbling sounds spread in the air as the scriptures on the wall disappeared. "You destroyed some of the treasures." The crowd entering the room was stupefied. They suddenly jumped forwards and threw themselves at Lin Feng. "Piss off," shouted Lin Feng furiously. He raised his fist as a gigantic hand appeared. The atmosphere was shaking as he smashed the opponent and crushed him against the wall. That person immediately crashed against the wall and blood splashed everywhere. Then they fell down on the ground, looking hurt. How can that guy be so strong? One punch and he had crippled that person's cultivation. Lin Feng probably stole some precious treasures belonging to the great emperor. Otherwise he wouldn't be this strong. His physical strength was way too terrifying. Lin Feng began walking with Tang Yu. They didn't even glance at the others as they left. Their faces looked hideous, but they opened the way and let them leave the hall. "Kill him," shouted someone. A few strong cultivators released energies, but a terrifying sword energy emerged in the air and suffocated them. That terrifying sword qi was supreme. It could destroy the sky and the earth. They were so scared that they stopped moving and just watched Lin Feng and Tang Yu leave. At that moment, there were people everywhere in the palace and many had obtained great treasures. Lin Feng didn't try to look for treasures. Instead, he walked into the depths of the palace to find the emperor's grave. In the great emperor's palace, there were many treasures, but he had already spent a lot of time in it. If he tried to accumulate treasures, he could miss some better opportunities. Besides, Lin Feng felt very content after seeing the 4 emperor statues. There were countless broken walls in the palace now. More than before because of everyone mining for crystals. Most halls were inaccessible because they were in ruin. After a while, Tang Yu and Lin Feng arrived in a space with many people. There was a magnificent 5-colored bridge with dragons on both sides. They seemed to be roaring furiously. Those who were on the other side of the bridge were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, but something seemed to be preventing them from coming over. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were astonished by the scenery. The dragon illusions were releasing an incredible qi. Entering that qi would probably be deadly. They would be crushed in the blink of an eye. There were 5 colors on that bridge which contained incredible abstruse energy. Sword qi, flames, ice, all in infinite quantities. That bridge contains abstruse crystals. Lin Feng was astonished. They could have picked them up easily if there was only one or a few abstruse crystals, but there were so many that the energy they contained was way too terrifying. Lin Feng looked at the desolate bridge and felt incredibly heroic, as if he didn't care about the abstruse energy. Lin Feng punched the atmosphere and created his own path. Enough, I refused to be taken in by fallacies. Someone couldn't stand it anymore and walked towards the bridge. It might lead to the great emperor's grave and incredible treasures, possibly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A terrifying pure chi started whistling as they walked towards the bridge. All eyes were on him. However, after 5 meters, his body started looking distorted. He couldn't handle the abstruse energy as he gave a horrible shriek and his body exploded. Permethaz Bridge. Do you need a particular noble chi to cross it? A lot of people pulled a long face. They had seen others cross, but they all had honorable chi, such as imperial or dragon chi. At that moment, a dragon roared and someone with a dragon robe walked onto the bridge. The chi from the dragons on each side momentarily stopped as they were escorted to Paramitha. The creator of this palace has really thought about everything. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling. He had also seen this specificity when Huang Fulong originally found the palace's location. Maybe the people from Jade Heaven Imperial clan were destined for this place. Imperial Chi and Dragon Chi are both noble types of Chi. I have Buddha Chi, is it a noble Chi? Whispered Lin Feng. He slowly walked towards the bridge he had to try. Chapter 809. Jade Heaven's palace in Lin Feng's previous world. Monarchs, dragons and the Buddhas were respected. Was this the same in the world of cultivation? The crowd looked at Lin Feng nervously. Most of the people who had crossed the bridge were from Jade Heaven or the East Sea Dragon Palace. There were a few people with precious items containing noble chi which allowed them to cross. Maybe Lin Feng also had a precious item? Tang Yu looked at Lin Feng with concern, but Lin Feng looked calm. Buddha's lights were twinkling around Lin Feng's body, and suddenly thousands of rays of light started twinkling. Lin Feng's body became dazzling to the eyes. His entire body was golden. Buddha's light. Now the crowd knew what he was trying. No wonder Lin Feng was confident. He was protected by Buddha. Thousands of lights illuminated the bridge as the dragons were roaring. Their dragon chi enveloped Lin Feng's body and protected him from the abstruse energy. Lin Feng didn't cross the bridge though. He moved back and nodded at Tang Yu, who immediately understood. She smiled and followed him. Lin Feng turned his head around and glanced at the crowd. He then turned back to speak to some people. Follow me. If you can stay in my Buddha's lights, you will be safe. If I cannot protect you all, wait for me and I will come back. The crowd was confused. Who was Lin Feng talking to? 5-6 people's silhouettes flickered and appeared on the bridge. They were all from Tianqi and they all knew that Lin Feng was talking to them. Another person appeared and lowered their head while walking towards Lin Feng. She didn't dare look at him, for it was the dignified Tianqi Shui. Was I talking to you? Asked Lin Feng in an indifferent way, making her feel very nervous. They all protected Huang Fulong when we entered the grave and we came in together. They all have the ability to become leaders in Tianqi. You don't care about other people. Now I don't care about you, so piss off, said Lin Feng indifferently. Tianqi Shui looked desperate. Don't let him leave, he can help us cross the bridge, someone shouted from the crowd. Lin Feng's Buddha's lights covered a wide area so they could follow him. Many silhouettes flickered. They wanted to prevent Lin Feng from crossing. As they neared, one of them said, "Bring us with you." Lin Feng glanced at them and said, "Do you really think that I'm a Buddha and possess compassion? Fuck off. If you don't bring us over, we'll kill you." Someone decided to threaten Lin Feng. Behind him were many cultivators getting ready to fight. But they wanted to see how things played out first. Buddhism is based on karma, so I will help you become a Buddhist and achieve Paramitha. Lin Feng jumped forwards and released millions of resplendent lights. Monstrous rumbling sounds spread in the air as a gigantic golden hand appeared, which fell down towards that person. The chi was terrifying, the atmosphere was vibrating and kept resonating. That Buddha's hand contained a terrifying physical strength. That person's facial expression suddenly changed as they retreated. The Buddha's hand gained speed as a loud bang resonated. Blood splashed everywhere. Their vital organs were crushed and their qi disappeared. That was Lin Feng's special way of carrying out a baptism ritual. What a terrifying physical strength. People were shaking and shivering. That Buddha's hand seemed to contain an infinite power. How much physical strength did it contain? Even a cultivator at the top of the 9th Xianqi layer would run scared from that attack. Anyone else want to convert themselves to Buddhism? Lin Feng glanced at the crowd. Immediately everybody moved back. Lin Feng was too scary. Why had they never heard of him? When Lin Feng saw that people were moving back, he grabbed Tang Yuyu's hand as millions of golden rays of light enveloped Tang Yuyu and the others behind her. The light turned into a gigantic bubble protecting them with its noble qi. The dragon roared and released energies to protect Lin Feng and his friends. As he crossed the bridge, Lin Feng could sense the abstruse energy all around him, but his heart remained beating at a normal pace. The crowd watched Lin Feng leave. They had mixed feelings of admiration and jealousy. Many of them regretted not having such a friend. It was probable that the great emperor's grave was on the other side. Now they would miss out on the treasures. Somewhere else at that moment in a big hall, a dazzling golden light was shining. Millions of magnificent rays of light were twinkling. There were 3 groups of people. A group from Jade Heaven were on one side and composed the largest number of people. Unsurprisingly, they were at the Jade Grave. After all, the Jade Emperor was their ancestor. Each time someone from the Jade Heaven Imperial clan entered the Jade Grave, the clan would become so much stronger. Every 100 years, the Jade Heaven's young cultivators who had almost broken through to the Tianqi layer were pressured by their clan to prepare for the Jade Grave. The East Sea Dragon Palace were facing them. They also had noble qi which allowed them to cross the bridge. They seized this opportunity to follow the Jade Heaven group. They didn't want Jade Heaven to get all the treasures for themselves, even if it was the tomb of their ancestor. Apart from those 2 groups, there was a group comprised of 4. Jun Emoshi, Yunfei Yang, Huang Fulong and Yu Tianji. They also crossed the bridge. Even though they were outnumbered, they were monstrously strong. No one attacked them because they knew there would be heavy casualties. Therefore, the 3 groups were at a standstill. On a wall next to them, a sign in all capital letters read, Jade Emperor's Palace. There was a half-broken golden door. Maybe it held incredible treasures. I have an idea, but I don't know if people from Jade Heaven will agree or not. Duan Wuya was scheming. Huang Feng looked at him. Talk. Everybody came here to find treasures and it hasn't been easy to find the grave. I think people from the East Sea Dragon Palace and Jade Heaven should join hands to kill those 4, and then take the Emperor's treasures together. What do you think? Duan Wuya had a resplendent smile on his face. He then glanced at Jun Emoshi and the others in an evil way. People from Jade Heaven were laughing inside. How could they trust him? Share the Emperor's treasure? Impossible. If one group obtained them, the others would have to die. But killing Jun Emoshi and the others first wasn't a bad idea. For Jade Heaven's people, the Jade Emperor's treasures had to be theirs only because they belonged to their clan. All right, I agree, said Huang Feng, nodding. Duan Wuya smiled slyly. The 2 groups looked at Jun Emoshi and the others and said, let's kill them first. Chapter 8:10. Undisclosed information. Jun Emoshi and his friends possess precious treasures. If they were killed, then everyone would obtain even more treasures. Jade Heaven and the East Sea Dragon Palace hated each other, but they both gained to benefit from this brief cooperation. A dozen people looked at Jun Emoshi and his friends. Their eyes were twinkling with cold lights. Jun Emoshi released some qi while staring back at the crowd. Die! Terrifying rays of sword qi appeared. Jun Emoshi and his friends gathered and released their own terrifying qi. Roar! Huang Fulong became furious with his dragon axe streaking across the sky. A dragon appeared and it was filled with terrifying dragon qi. Let me fight! Yunfei Yang rang his ancient bell as it then flew over towards their opponents, emitting unceasing buzzing sounds in the atmosphere. Yu Tianji released his indestructible stars. A star disk appeared in his hand as the moon and stars fused together. Die! A terrifying deadly qi condensed. Yu Tianji's hand was dazzling as starlight shot out at the opponents. The opponents separated to the sides in order to avoid the attack. The group of opponents had adopted a chaotic fighting formation, not fighting together anymore. Lin Feng's friends possessed terrifying items. If the opponents acted recklessly, they would probably die. Huangfeng, your people from Jade Heaven have precious treasures as well. Since I know that, there's no need to hide them anymore, let's get serious. Because both sides hated each other. They weren't fighting with their full strength. Who would want to show their full strength in front of their enemies? Ao Jiao stared back at Huangfeng with a radiant smile. He wanted to see what extraordinary item he had previously found. Don't tell Jade Heaven what to do. You guys from the East Sea Dragon Palace have been staring at us the whole time, so prepare yourselves. Huangfeng smiled coldly. Together, okay? Ao Jiao said while smiling indifferently. Okay, said Huangfeng, nodding. A dragon scale appeared in Ao Jiao's hand. It was golden and twinkling with an incredible qi. In Huangfeng's other hand appeared a dazzling golden crown with an incredible imperial qi. This is the Jade Heaven's golden crown of the legends, Ao Jiao said while looking at Huangfeng's crown. Enough, said Huangfeng while placing the crown on his head. In a flash, his body was bathing in an incredible imperial qi which diffused a magnificent golden light all around him. I think we can immobilize them while you attack. Huangfeng recognized how strong that crown was. He pulled a long face. The East Sea Dragon Palace wanted it for themselves. Fine, said Ao Jiao with a resplendent smile. You immobilize them while I kill them, one after the other. All right. Huangfeng agreed, nodding. Immediately after, Ao Jiao's scale appeared in the air, and a terrifying strength started rolling in waves in the atmosphere. It seemed like time stopped and Jun Moshi's body became stiff. That invisible strength seemed to place a lot of pressure on them. Especially on Huang Fulong. Ao Jiao specifically targeted Huang Fulong's because he wanted his dragon axe. Die! Shouted Huangfeng furiously. He then released a terrifying imperial qi which enveloped his body. The crown on his head became dazzling, as a sudden all-conquering sword launched at Huang Fulong. Be careful, shouted Jun Moshi. The sword could annihilate anything and couldn't be dodged. Do you dare? Shouted a voice as dark clouds appeared. They were filled with a terrifying demon qi which caused people to shiver and shake. A terrifying sword qi streaked across the sky. That pure sword qi could lacerate the earth and the sky. It was absolute. Huangfeng's heart was pounding. He could sense that terrifying sword qi emerging from behind Huang Fulong. Die! Shouted Huangfeng furiously. There was a terrifying imperial qi merged in with his sword qi. It had almost reached Huang Fulong at this point. Huang Fulong moved to the side, shouted someone in the distance. Huang Fulong dodged away as a terrifying sword qi passed next to him. Huangfeng was frantic. What a terrifying sword qi. It seemed like his body was going to be chopped into pieces. He quickly tried to dodge. Huangfeng felt paralyzed. His crown changed into an imperial golden shield. Boom boom. An infinite amount of strength crashed onto Huangfeng's shield and he was blown away. Blood splashing out of his mouth. Gotcha! A cracking sound spread in the air as his shield was broken. Huangfeng crashed into the ground next to the big door. That ground was already falling apart, so it completely broke after Huangfeng crashed into it. It broke. Jade Heaven's people were stupefied. Ao Jiao was speechless as he stared at Lin Feng. What a terrifying guy. Cough cough. Huangfeng tried to stand up again. His silhouette flickered as he threw himself through the door. Ao Jiao was astonished. He wants to steal the treasures. Everybody started running towards the room, already forgetting about the fight. Their only purpose was to get the great emperor's treasures. The Jade Emperor's palace. Lin Feng raised his head and saw those huge golden letters. After Permithaw's bridge, Lin Feng noticed many vast halls with magnificent golden walls. However, many of them were firmly closed. He believed they weren't strong enough to open them before, but now Lin Feng was thinking otherwise. The palace is broken everywhere, said Lin Feng while looking at the broken golden door. One just has to be strong enough to break through the rubble. Lin Feng began revolving his demon strength in his body. Lin Feng turned his head around and glanced at Huang Fulong, who was bleeding. He then said, "It's a good thing that I have thick skin. Lin Feng, let's hurry on ahead." The palace was vast. There were sculptures and paintings of dragons and phoenixes found on walls and pillars around them. Boom boom boom. Terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the air as the East Sea Dragon Palace attacked the doors. However, they remained closed. He already knew where to go? Shouted Ao Jiao furiously. He has the map, so that's why he knew where to go in the palace. Nobody would have thought that Huang Feng would betray them. Chapter 8:11. Stealing treasures. There were golden dazzling lights in the hall. Each and every corner contained a magnificent imperial qi, as if the entire place was blessed. There were cuneiform writings on the walls which resembled a peerless skill. A silhouette stood in the hallway, resembling both a statue and a real human being. That person looked majestic and dignified. There was a crown on his head and their entire body was surrounded by a dazzling imperial qi. Jade Emperor, said Huang Feng while shivering. He entered the palace and was now in the Jade Emperor's hall, so he knew the silhouette in front of him was that of the Jade Emperor. I finally arrived. Finally, said Huang Feng, clenching his fists. He felt like exploding with excitement. He was overjoyed. He was going to receive the Jade Emperor's teachings, and the future of the Jade Heaven Imperial clan would follow his glory. They would conquer the Ganyu region and then join the Holy City and become a real imperial family. Everything would be thanks to him, Huang Feng. Huang Feng slowly walked forwards, his legs weighed heavy. The Jade Emperor's radiance was dazzling to the eyes. Huang Feng sighed and knelt down while releasing some imperial qi to attract the Jade Emperor's attention and receive his teachings. Huang Feng suddenly shook from head to foot. Just as the legend said, he was going to receive the Jade Emperor's teachings. He joined his hands together as if he was praying and prostrated 3 times. He stood up and lied down again, prostrating himself. He then knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. He really wanted to learn from the emperor. After he knelt and kowtowed, Huang Feng couldn't contain his excitement anymore. He was going to receive the instructions of an emperor. 1 second, 10 seconds, 100 seconds, time passed slowly, but he still hadn't received the instructions of the emperor. He felt perplexed and even scared. He was using a special skill to receive the emperor's teachings that only Jade Heaven's people knew about it. Even if other groups came in, they wouldn't be able to receive the emperor's instructions without his knowledge. But why then wasn't the emperor reacting? Huang Feng looked desperate, but he still continued the ritual as before. He was now considering whether he angered the emperor somehow. Boom boom. An extremely loud sound spread in the air. The hall started shaking violently, like it was going to collapse. Huang Feng became even more desperate. Why wasn't the emperor reacting? Why? Finally, after a while, Huang Feng stood up and bowed respectfully again in front of the emperor while saying, "Honorable ancestor, I am convinced that you left some of your teachings here." After that, Huang Feng walked around to see if there were any teachings carved into the walls. There were those mysterious veins in the walls as well as scriptures, but no trace of his teachings. Huang Feng checked behind the Golden Jade Emperor and noticed some scriptures, but he couldn't understand them. It was as if they were mystical holy scriptures. What could these mysterious scriptures be saying? Huang Feng looked perplexed. He understood nothing. Huang Feng was going insane from the lack of treasures. The scriptures contained a mysterious strength and looked flamboyant. They seemed to contain all the strength and power of the heavens. But they didn't look like the emperor's writings. It was probably someone else who wrote them. Gotcha! The rumbling sounds were becoming more intense while Huang Feng became more frantic. Finally, some cracks appeared everywhere in the hall, and people rushed in as everything broke apart. People from Jade Heaven, from the East Sea Dragon Palace, as well as Lin Feng and his friends finally arrived. This time they were not fighting each other because the emperor's treasures were on the line. Sooner or later they would fight and kill each other. Nobody was willing to let Huang Feng get away with all of the treasures. Jade Heaven's people saw the emperor's silhouette inside the hall and became excited. Even after 1,000 years, cultivators still respected him. The East Sea Dragon Palace approached the emperor's silhouette more cautiously. To them the emperor was a peerless cultivator who stood above all. They didn't dare to look him straight in the eyes, but they still bowed respectfully. Lin Feng entered and glanced at the Jade Emperor's silhouette. Excitement was twinkling in his eyes. Lin Feng had already seen the 4 Zun cultivator statues and greatly benefited from them. Lin Feng considered himself as peerless, capable of facing the best cultivators in the world, even the most revered and respected ones, just as the demoniac emperor had. Lin Feng wasn't too scared of the great emperor before him. "Huang Feng," shouted Ao Jiao, "take the items out." Huang Feng was furious, but he said honestly, "I didn't get anything." Do you really think I believe you? Ao Jiao remained cold. It was unlikely that there was nothing in the hall. Huang Feng glanced at the crowd and realized nobody believed him. If he had obtained treasures, he wouldn't be standing here arguing with Jade Heavens. He would be murdering without resistance. Huang Feng was perfectly aware that coming to the mysterious world was an incredible opportunity. Even though he was only the leader of a small group of Jade Heavens people, there were others who had already broken through to the Tianqi layer. If he managed to obtain the Jade Emperor's instructions, he would gain an advantage against them. Ao Jiao also faced similar circumstances against the 4 great dragon kings of the East Sea Dragon Palace offsprings. He needed these treasures to stand out. If you don't hand over the treasures, we'll kill you. The crowd was closing in on Huang Feng. Jade Heaven's people weren't helping him even. Lin Feng sat back and watched. To him, they were all dogs that he didn't need to fight unless he could option their treasures. So you're courting death. I will kill you and take all your treasures with force, said Ao Jiao with an ice-cold smile on his face. A flood dragon appeared around him. Its chi was whistling as it shot at Huang Feng. At the same time, people from the East Sea Dragon Palace attacked at the same time. Huang Feng was still wearing his jade crown, but looked pale facing Ao Jiao's attack. The entire hall was shaking violently suddenly. Lin Feng noticed Duan Wuya sneaking behind Huang Feng while they engaged. What a sly guy. He's always plotting something evil. Duan Wuya looked over at Lin Feng. He knew how much Lin Feng hated him and thought it was a good idea to keep an eye on him. Huang Feng was being attacked from every direction, but his golden crown was twinkling. Lin Feng had previously attacked him with his sword and broke Huang Feng's aura, but now it seemed to be recovering to normal. Fuck off! Shouted Huang Feng furiously. His crown turned into gloves which he used to attack Ao Jiao. Duan Wuya took this chance to attack. The qi contained in his gourd flooded out at Huang Feng. Huang Feng gave a horrible shriek as his arms became loose and the ring he was wearing flew away. Everybody's attention focused on the ring. A terrifying qi emerged and darted towards the ring. That person wanted to steal it no matter what or who was in their way. Lin Feng moved as well, but he didn't care about the ring. Instead, he targeted Huang Feng with a terrifying sword qi. I don't care about the treasures in your ring. I'm going to make sure you die. You wanted to kill my friends and steal our treasures. Now it's my turn to return the favor. Lin Feng was furious. Perhaps he could benefit from the crown anyways, so why not? Chapter 8:12. The demoniac emperor's scriptures. Huang Feng stared back at Lin Feng in a cruel way. He was a young and was so close to receiving the Jade Emperor's teachings. He could already imagine himself reigning over the region. But now his dreams were collapsing. Lin Feng's sword would end him. The Imperial Jade skill is in my ring. Huang Feng spat out these last words as his qi disappeared and he died. Duan Wuya glanced over at Lin Feng and retreated back. Lin Feng was too strong for Duan Wuya. Lin Feng's blood sword was absorbing Huang Feng's blood energy, making it stronger. After Lin Feng put his sword away and looked at the chaotic battlefield. Did that ring really contain the Imperial Jade skill? Lin Feng didn't trust Huang Feng. He probably set a trap. Don't worry about it. There's no need to rush for it. Lin Feng said. Jun Moshi and the others who seemed to understand what he meant. They all nodded back to him. Lin Feng walked over to Tang Yu and offered her the Jade Imperial helmet while saying, this helmet can change shape to become an offensive or a defensive weapon. Everybody else has nice items, so this one should be yours. Tang Yu's beautiful eyes twinkled back at Lin Feng. He looked at her in a gentle way with his dark pupils. Okay, Tang Yu said while nodding and smiling. She took the helmet and inspected Huang Feng's memories. Her body flashed as the helmet turned into a golden cape which covered her back. Tang Yu looked magnificent, like a princess or even a queen. Not bad, you look so pretty, Lin Feng said, making Tang Yu blush and lower her head. She suddenly became quite shy. You want to steal my treasures? You're courting death. Ao Jiao suddenly became furious. The battle was becoming chaotic again as everyone tried to steal the ring. Who wouldn't go insane for his treasures, thought Lin Feng, glancing at the battle. Huang Feng's last words were too tempting. Even though he didn't scream it, everybody clearly heard him. Imperial Jade skills were incredible. Nobody doubted their worth. Everybody craved for such skills which would prove infinitely useful to them in the future. Especially the cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace and the Jade Heaven Imperial clan. Lin Feng remained calm. He still didn't trust Huang Feng. He looked at the emperor and sighed. After 1,000 years, the emperor was still bathing in such a potent imperial qi. The emperor would never collapse. His imperial strength was so terrifying that it seemed like he was alive. Lin Feng looked around at the golden walls and at the mysterious scriptures. They looked like the veins of the earth and contained a terrifying physical strength. Unfortunately, his cultivation level was too low, and he couldn't benefit from their teachings. He turned around and looked at the back of the emperor. Very suddenly Lin Feng's body started shaking violently. Huang Feng wasn't able to understand the scriptures on the wall, so he thought no one would acquire the emperor's secrets. Lin Feng slightly moved sideways away from the emperor. The wall seemed to pull him step by step. It seemed like each of his steps weighed heavily. He had the impression he could barely control himself. There was buzzing sounds ringing in his head. It was now staring blankly at the wall. Lin Feng never had such a feeling before. Tang Yu and the others watched Lin Feng wander away shaking. What was happening to him? They looked at the wall, but just like Huang Feng, they understood nothing. They could sense the incredible strength within the scripture, but couldn't gain anything from them. Could those be the demoniac emperor's words? They suddenly came to a conclusion. The demoniac emperor chased the Jade Emperor to this spot. But why was Lin Feng reacting that way? They didn't understand. Wait. Their pupils shrank. If they didn't understand but Lin Feng did, what did it mean? Maybe those carvings contained incredible secrets that only Lin Feng was allowed to read. They walked towards Lin Feng and approached the wall. They inspected the wall again, but no matter how they tried they couldn't understand. They looked at Lin Feng again and noticed he was shaking less violently now. However, Lin Feng was still blankly staring at the walls, his lips quivering. The demoniac emperor! The demoniac emperor! Roar! Lin Feng clenched his fists. Some crackling sound spread in the air. Lin Feng's facial expression was indescribable. Nobody understood what he was feeling. Tang Yu and the others had guessed right. Those were the demoniac emperor's scriptures. After a long time, Lin Feng calmed down again and glanced at those who were fighting. A cold smile appeared on his face. There was a precious treasure in that ring? How ridiculous! Lin Feng was convinced that there was nothing inside. Demoniac Emperor, you died with a remaining grievance, didn't you? Sighed Lin Feng. He looked back at the crowd and said, no need to look for treasures in the ring. They looked surprised. Lin Feng sounded honest and confident. He must have realized something from the scriptures on the walls. But what had Lin Feng seen? Lin Feng sat down cross-legged and stared at the wall while slowly releasing some deadly qi. He raised his hands up and the energies condensed into a black lotus filled with deadly energy. The gloomy fire contained in the black lotus was terrifying as it flickered, seemingly lighting Lin Feng's hand on fire. The fire in Lin Feng's hand was burning faster. His qi was becoming scarier. It seemed like that fire could consume them all. What a terrifying strength! They felt like Lin Feng was practicing a skill that he was reading from the scriptures on the walls. Did the demoniac emperor's scriptures contain a skill? Chapter 8:13. Lin Feng defying laws human and divine. While Lin Feng was reading the scriptures, Ao Jiao finally managed to grab the ring. After putting it on his finger, he inspected its content and let his soul penetrate into it. Quickly he became upset. Give me the ring. The crowd was following the ring. Ao Jiao stared at them and shouted, everybody stop. His voice contained the strength of a dragon, causing the entire crowd to shake. There is nothing inside. If you don't believe me, have a look yourself, said Ao Jiao without explaining too much. He threw the ring and Duan Wuya caught it. Duan Wuya inspected the ring. As expected, Huang Feng's things and memories were all inside. Even though there were many things inside, there was nothing that belonged to the emperor. Huang Feng had died without obtaining any benefits. Of course, from the moment Huang Feng chose to enter the palace on his own, he was already doomed. There were only two possibilities. One was obtaining the emperor's treasures and possibly having the strength to defend himself. The other was finding nothing and dying once everyone broke in. You are all members of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Why would we believe you? shouted one of the Jade Heaven cultivators furiously. Ao Jiao smiled coldly and said, "Do you think that Huang Feng would toss the ring if he had found the emperor's treasures?" That person narrowed their eyes. Ao Jiao was right. If Huang Feng really obtained the emperor's treasures, he would never chance gifting them to someone else. Nobody was ready to accept the eventuality that that ring might contain nothing interesting at all. If the emperor's treasures were really inside that ring, I would take it and leave with it already, Ao Jiao said while pulling up his sleeves, determined to continue hunting for treasures. People gradually started to believe him, turning back to Lin Feng and wondering what he found out. What a terrifying qi! A terrifying black hand was appearing in front of Lin Feng. A single glance at that hand made their hearts ache. What's going on? Has he obtained an incredible skill? The crowd couldn't understand the writings either. Where is the treasure? Where? According to the legends, there were the jade skills in the Jade Emperor's hall, so why couldn't they find them? The crowd was looking everywhere. Was the emperor's treasures in those scriptures and holy marks? At that moment, a terrifying deadly energy had filled the air as Lin Feng stopped practicing his skill and stood up. He turned around and looked at Tang Yu and his other friends. He looked solemn. He owed his friends for everything he just learnt. If someone had attacked him while he was practicing, he might have lost it all. Yu, Emoshi, Fei Yang, Fulong, and others, I hope you can help me, said Lin Feng. Jun Emoshi and the others narrowed their eyes. Lin Feng had seemingly just learnt an amazing skill. What did he need from them? Maybe it had something to do with the great emperor's treasures? I will help you no matter what you need, Huang Fulong said gleefully. He had finally recovered now. Jun Emoshi and Yun Feiyang nodded as well. Lin Feng was ready to go through anything and even risk his life for them, so why would they refuse? Yu Tianji looked at Lin Feng. He had been silently observing Lin Feng while he was practicing. Yu Tianji felt like something extraordinary was occurring in Lin Feng's body. All right, Yu Tianji said indifferently, yet confidently. Everybody nodded, one after the other. Lin Feng only made a few steps and stopped in front of the emperor. He was fixedly staring at him, the incredible emperor. Even if he had died, he still looked majestic and dignified. Boom, boom, boom. Frightening rumbling sounds spread in the air. The emperor's statue began shaking. What was going on? A black fire filled with deadly energy was burning in Lin Feng's hand, but he was looking at the emperor so calmly. The crowd watched Lin Feng raise his hand and reach out at the emperor. The rumbling sounds became more fierce as a terrifying imperial qi attempted to block Lin Feng's hand. However, the imperial qi couldn't withstand it and was dispersed. Lin Feng's deadly energies kept moving forwards and crashed into the emperor's body, assaulting his vital organs. Boom! The crowd was astonished. Their hearts were pounding painfully. Their brains seemed like they were going to explode. Lin Feng was using his hand to attack the emperor's vital organs. Yu Tianji had anticipated Lin Feng's action but was still astonished. That was the Jade Emperor. He was an emperor. Even if he had already died, he was as glorious as before. He wasn't as strong as the past, but even the Jade Heaven and East Sea Dragon Palace people wouldn't look at him because of his strength. But at that moment, Lin Feng was defying their realities. He used his hand, assaulted the great emperor's body. Boom! A terrifying qi invaded the entire atmosphere. Imperial qi rolled about as a silhouette appeared. It looked majestic and dignified. That silhouette looked like that of an incredible and majestic emperor. People were shivering. They felt like they were going to collapse from the pressure. A pair of ice-cold-looking pupils were staring back at Lin Feng. Emperor! The crowd was aghast. Lin Feng was insane. He was purely insane. That person was the emperor, the dignified and majestic emperor. That's only an image left by the emperor when he died. It's not the real emperor. Otherwise, he would have killed Lin Feng with the blink of his eye. The crowd figured, but they respected Lin Feng for his guts to oppose such a figure. Protect me, shouted Lin Feng while closing his eyes. The terrifying light which had been building finally penetrated into Lin Feng's brain. 50,000 souls, protect Mel. Lin Feng was struggling to oppose that light. He was lucky to have the broken spirit skill. If it was someone else, their soul would have torn apart already. Chapter 8:14. Crushing the emperor's internal organs, everybody was astonished by Lin Feng's actions. Their mouths were hanging wide open and left speechless. Duan Wuya's eyes were twinkling as he watched Lin Feng. A moment before, Lin Feng shouted that he needed help from the others. It meant he was using his full strength to assault the emperor and was open for attack. If he succeeded, there might be treasures to take as well. Jade Heaven people, you see him tarnish your ancestor's corpse and yet you are fleeing? Duan Wuya said indifferently. Jade Heaven's people were conflicted. The Jade Emperor was their ancestor. He was so incredible that only the true core disciples of the sect knew about his existence. But at that moment, in front of their very eyes, Lin Feng was crushing the emperor's corpse. Stop that! Someone decided to take action. They couldn't stand it anymore. Their ancestor's body was being assaulted. They all threw themselves at Lin Feng while releasing imperial qi. Their facial expressions all looked cold. Even if they knew what Duan Wuya's motive was, they still wanted to respect their ancestor. Jun Moshi and the others released an incredible qi to protect him. Lin Feng's eyes were firmly closed and he stood motionless. His entire body was bathing in flames. At the same time, he released some extremely powerful sword energy. He anticipated that his attack would be risky, and that's why he took such an extreme and cautious approach. Although he knew that he was risking his life, it seemed like he underestimated the emperor's power. 1,000 years had passed, but the emperor was still kicking. Lin Feng's mental health and soul were taking a lot of damage. At the same time, the emperor was releasing even more imperial qi. His vital organs were strong and full of vitality, as if he had never died. Corrosion! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. His black fire became larger. He was determined to destroy the emperor's organs. Drops of blood started spilling. Each drop of blood contained an incredible amount of vigor and vitality. They would ignite as they came into contact with Lin Feng's black fire and vanish. Burn, burn, burn. Lin Feng sounded fearless. His voice sounded like a sharp sword. Corrosion. Lin Feng wanted to corrode the emperor's vital organs? Why? Boom, boom, boom. The Jade Hall started shaking violently again. Even more violently than it had until now. Stop him, we must stop him. The East Sea Dragon Palace were becoming frantic. Kill him! Shouted the Jade Heaven's young cultivators while throwing themselves at him. Piss off! Shouted Huang Fulong while jumping to the front of the myriad of enemies. He took down his dragon axe and a dragon image appeared, swallowing the first enemy to approach. Snowflakes started fluttering around in the atmosphere as some Tianqi cultivators were releasing snow intent in the hall. They all have treasures. You cannot defeat them with direct confrontation. Duan Wuya said indifferently. Huang Fulong and his friends all possessed treasures. Coupled with a few people from Tianqi, their group was quite strong. What is your suggestion? Asked Ao Jiao. Let's get behind the emperor and avoid Lin Feng's guards. Duan Wuya said coldly. Ao Jiao narrowed his eyes and looked at Duan Wuya straight in the eyes. That guy was quite sly. His ability to come up with new plots and vicious ideas was endless. Boom! A terrifying qi appeared as two silhouettes entered the Jade Emperor's hall. One of them had a terrifying and extremely sharp sword intent. It was Kong Zhouyi, the young leader of the 9 Cloud Sword sect. Ao Jiao also recognized the other one. It was the young leader of the Xiaoyao sect, Gu Qianqiu. What's going on? Kong Zhouyi asked Ao Jiao. There are treasures which have been discovered, and he wants to destroy the emperor's internal organs to get them, replied Ao Jiao. Without hesitation, Kong Zhouyi and Gu Qianqiu threw themselves at Lin Feng. Why aren't you helping them? Kong Zhouyi was suspicious of Ao Jiao's intentions. None of them are weak and cannot beat them. It's a good thing that you two guys arrived so we can fight together. Ao Jiao said. Kong Zhouyi turned his head around and looked at the battle. He then threw himself at Lin Feng while was releasing massive amounts of sword qi. His entire body seemed as sharp as a sword. Yu Tianji sensed the surge of sword qi. He took a step forwards and blocked Kong Zhouyi's way. He then spread his arms and 7 indestructible and dazzling stars appeared. Zirr. The terrifying sword qi landed on the starlights, broke through them and continued onward towards Yu Tianji. Yu Tianji remained calm as a crescent moon appeared and the sword crashed into it. Unlike before, the attack seemed to crash into moving sands. Kong Zhouyi was surprised by the crescent moon's strength. It had to be a powerful treasure to block his sword so easily. A storm of deadly energy started rolling in waves all around as sword qi revolved in the form of whirlwinds. Yu Tianji spread out his arm and starlights appeared in his hand, which immediately shot out towards Kong Jiuyi, oppressing him. Rumbling sounds became more intense as the stars neared Kong Jiuyi. At the same time, Gu Qianqiu used the Xiaoyao agility technique. He turned into several silhouettes and targeted only Lin Feng. "Back," said Tang Yuyu while running in front of Lin Feng. Her golden jade imperial crown turned into a sharp sword that darted towards Gu Qianqiu. "Humph!" Gu Qianqiu groaned and pushed his agility further. Several more silhouettes appeared. He wanted to avoid any confrontations and go straight for Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu also groaned as she turned into a million silhouettes which surrounded Lin Feng. She set off a million punches at Gu Qianqiu. At that moment, sweat dripped off Lin Feng's eyebrows. The corrosive power in his hand became increasingly more terrifying. The emperor's vital organs were too strong. Lin Feng could only manage to weaken him, drop by drop. Lin Feng turned his left hand into a sword and cut into his right hand. His blood started flowing in the emperor's organs, slowly replaced by Lin Feng's blood. The vitality of the emperor's blood was thus being replaced by that of Lin Feng's. Meanwhile, the entire palace was shaking so much that it was difficult to stand straight. Chapter 8:15. Come out. Buzz. A buzzing sound spread in the air as a dazzling light appeared. The crowd felt oppressed. Meanwhile, Ao Jiao and Duan Wuya snuck behind the crowd and approached the emperor from behind. "I'll attack first," said Duan Wuya. Ao Jiao nodded in agreement. He looked at the emperor's silhouette with cold twinkling lights in his eyes. The gloomy gourd appeared and a terrifying gloomy qi penetrated into it. Then the gourd released a terrifying gloomy qi that assaulted emperor's silhouette. Boom boom. It crashed onto the emperor, but a terrifying imperial qi emerged. His gloomy qi couldn't penetrate the emperor's body without immediately vanishing like smoke. Duan Wuya was stupefied. It was of no use. He had broken through to the 9th qi layer and possessed the gloomy gourd. But his energies were destroyed easily. Even more so, the emperor's silhouette hadn't moved at all. "Let me try." Ao Jiao stepped in front of Duan Wuya and released some terrifying flood dragon energies. The dragon roared and attacked the emperor. Actually, Ao Jiao wanted to see what Lin Feng was facing when attacking the emperor's vital organs. If Lin Feng tried to destroy the emperor's vital organs, so why wouldn't Ao Jiao? Boom! He attacked the emperor from behind but had the impression that he struck a metal wall. He wasn't able to budge the emperor in the slightest. Ao Jiao felt stiff as his flood dragon roared again and attacked the emperor again, but as before nothing happened. He was the great Ao Jiao but couldn't make the emperor move of a single iota, but Lin Feng used his fire and managed to penetrate the emperor's body. Even worse, he was damaging the emperor. How strong was Lin Feng really? He turned around and read the scriptures on the walls but couldn't understand anything. Lin Feng had learnt that incredible skill from the scriptures on the walls. It had to be that skill that gave him the advantage. Boom 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 boom. Both the emperor and the palace were shaking more violently. It was difficult to stand steady. Only Lin Feng remained perfectly immobile and steady. Corrosion, corrosion. Lin Feng condensed his full strength in his hands and held the emperor's organs even tighter. Finally, the emperor's internal organs were becoming weaker. It almost seemed like Lin Feng was going to take them out. The Jade Emperor's heart is mine. Lin Feng opened his eyes. He looked like an all-conquering warlord. The rumbling sounds and psychedelic lights finally ceased. The emperor's internal organs were finally failing. The Jade Emperor's heart fully drained. Boom boom boom. People felt sick, they might faint even. Everyone in the palace felt this way, not just those in the hall. People were collapsing one after the other. Soon after, some people were looking at them. They were extremely strong and belonged to powerful and influential groups. Everyone had left the mysterious world. They were now at the entrance to the mysterious world. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? What was happening? They had never heard of such a thing. People coming out of the mysterious world at the same time, completely stunned and confused. What had really happened? Could it be that the emperor's grave had appeared? The leader of the Jade Heaven group was excited. He knew what had happened. The emperor's grave had been discovered. Huang Feng. Where is Huang Feng? He was frantically glancing around but couldn't find Huang Feng. Huang Feng had the Jade Emperor's palace map. Hopefully he received the Jade Emperor's teachings. Duan Wu Dao. He walked towards Duan Wu Dao. Only Huang Feng wasn't present, which gave him hope. Had Huang Feng really received the Emperor's teachings and instructions? Where is Huang Feng? He asked Duan Wu Dao. Duan Wu Dao and the others raised their heads. They didn't look very good. Huang Feng died, said Duan Wu Dao. They were stunned. What? Huang Feng died. What happened? They looked devastated. The Emperor's palace appeared, said Duan Wu Dao, making people shiver. It really happened. This time it had happened. But Huang Feng died with the Emperor's palace map. They would need to find someone to replace him. Did you find the Jade Emperor's hall? He continued questioning Duan Wu Dao. That was a crucial point. Duan Wu Dao nodded. Who obtained the Jade Emperor's teachings? He asked in a louder voice than before. I don't know. In the end, Lin Feng used a power to corrode the Emperor's vital organs, and then we appeared here, said Duan Wu Dao. Corroded the Emperor's organs? Lin Feng again. Lin Feng. How audacious. Lin Feng dared to corrode the Jade Emperor's internal organs, but Lin Feng wasn't that strong. How had he managed to do that? And what about the Emperor's instructions and teachings? Did Huang Feng manage to enter the Jade Emperor's hall? He did. He was the first one to enter, but he didn't find anything. The others thought that he had, so they attacked him. But in the end Lin Feng killed Huang Feng. Lin Feng again. The strong cultivators from Jade Heaven were going insane. Their eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intentions. Not only them but also the Golden Purple Dragon King was upset. Lin Feng was quite audacious. Those influential and powerful groups were trying to find their disciples. Unfortunately, only a few people managed to cross the Permitha Bridge and entered the Jade Emperor's hall. But at least they obtained many items, especially intent crystals. Concerning the groups of influence which managed to enter the Jade Emperor's hall, everyone was staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng actually assaulted the Jade Emperor. At that moment, Lin Feng and the others from Tianqi arrived next to the 7 eagles. The snow eagles didn't ask much, just, did everyone obtain something? Many people nodded, looking excited. The 7 snow eagles nodded as well. It seemed like this time the trip to the mysterious world was successful for Tianqi, especially for those Tianxian cultivators who followed Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu was wearing a magnificent golden cape. Jun Emoshi also had a magnificent golden robe. Huang Fulong had an incredible dragon axe. All of those were highly valuable treasures. Tianqi could be proud of those young cultivators. Chapter 816. One hand. How audacious. You dare to steal our Jade Heaven's treasures. Someone screamed extremely loudly. That voice was so loud that it pierced through people's eardrums. A strong cultivator from Jade Heaven appeared in front of the Tianqi group and was shouting at Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu was wearing their precious jade golden crown, just in another shape. Everybody started getting agitated and excited about a potential fight. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the person in the sky. Lin Feng had a powerful soul and the Heaven Eye skill which enabled him to determine other people's level. That person had broken through to the first Tianqi layer. That crown belongs to the Jade Heaven Imperial clan. I heard that you killed Huang Feng in order to get it, said that person coldly while releasing some powerful qi. You are right, indeed I killed Huang Feng and stole that crown. In the mysterious world, people kill others in order to gain precious treasures. I killed Huang Feng and stole his treasure, and he couldn't protect himself because he was a piece of trash. Is that the reason why you are yelling? To tell everyone how shitty the young cultivators of Jade Heaven are? Lin Feng's voice was sharp. Lin Feng didn't look scared at all. He had received the 4 emperors' instructions and corroded the great emperor's heart. To Lin Feng, a cultivator of the first Tianqi layer was nothing. Little brat. You think that you are a genius and show no respect for your elders, shouted that person furiously while releasing a terrifying qi, capable of suppressing people's souls. An elder? You think quite highly of yourself, said Lin Feng mockingly before adding, just piss off, I'm giving you some good advice. Don't stay here and humiliate yourself. If you are looking for trouble, at least you should learn how to speak properly. How audacious! I've never seen such an insane and impetuous young man. I will show you that you should respect cultivators of the Tianqi layer. A cultivator of the Xianqi layer cannot do anything against someone like me. That person was suddenly surrounded by an imperial qi which targeted Lin Feng. It was terrifying. His hair was fluttering in the wind and the qi was whistling. Fuck off! A terrifying feral qi dashed to the skies in the form of a tornado. The opponent quickly retreated in the sky. Do you think you can bully Tianqi's people as you wish? One of the snow eagles pissed off. It's your fault. Doesn't Tianqi educate its young cultivators? He's too conceited, so I will help teach your cultivators some manners. That person wasn't backing down. Teach me manners? Lin Feng was smiling coldly. He stood up and jumped and rose up in the sky. The crowd was astonished. What was Lin Feng doing? Lin Feng, shouted the snow eagle. Cultivators of the Xianqi layer were indeed far from being able to defeat cultivators of the Tianqi layer. The difference was too vast. The snow eagle hoped Lin Feng would stay safe. I am going to teach him some manners, Lin Feng said back to the snow eagle. Immediately after, he looked at the Jade Heaven man and said, Elder, would you still teach me some manners? He released some supreme sword qi which dashed to the skies and whistled stridently. It was like a storm moving towards the enemy. Level 7 sword intent. The crowd was astonished. What a terrifying young man. He hadn't broken through to the Tianqi layer but could already use level 7 intent. What a genius. Other geniuses felt small before him. The Tian level cultivator from Jade Heaven was astonished as well. Level 7 sword intnet. What an accomplishment. He could sense the qi and it scared him. A million swords condensed in front of Lin Feng, who turned himself into a sword and darted forward with incredible speed. Elder, it is time for your first lesson. The million swords condensed and turned into one. It contained an incredibly supreme qi, absolutely brutal. The million swords became one. It hadn't reached the opponent yet, but he already felt like he was going to be cut in half. The strong Jade Heaven cultivator joined his hands together and looked solemn. The sword skill was extremely powerful and on top of that held level 7 sword intent. A terrifying imperial qi rolled in the atmosphere. A dragon seemingly appeared to defend against the sword. Some sound spread in the air as the sword qi cut through the imperial qi, surprising the crowd. The imperial qi quickly disappeared. What a strong elder! Lin Feng said mockingly. Lin Feng's sword qi hadn't lost its spirit yet and continued on to that cultivator. The Tian level cultivator roared aggressively, while releasing his soul strength at Lin Feng. However, it was as if it had crashed into an ocean. It immediately dispersed and disappeared inside Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched out his hand from which a black fire appeared which seemed capable of melting anything. You have broken through to the Tianqi layer. How awesome, said Lin Feng, whose gigantic hand gained on his enemy. The enemy blocked the attack, but that black hand was too powerful and directly crashed onto his body. The fire was flickering in the wind as the enemy's body did not even leave ashes. He's dead. The crowd was aghast, their hearts started pounding. Had a cultivator of the Tianqi layer just been killed by Lin Feng with a single attack? A Xian-level cultivator killing a Tian-level cultivator so easily. That was both impressive and astonishing. Lin Feng was standing in the sky and looked peerless, brutal, cruel. Were Tian-level cultivators all that strong? Surprisingly, he wanted to teach Lin Feng lesson and was killed with a single attack. Who could have predicted that outcome? How brutal. That guy is simply terrifying. Thought Huang Fulong speechless. That guy killed a Tian-level cultivator in one attack? Killing that cultivator of the Tianqi layer was seemingly as easy as killing a cultivator of the Xianqi layer. The 7 snow eagles were just as surprised by Lin Feng. Even though they had always known how strong Lin Feng was, they had never thought that he would reach such heights so quickly. All the Jade Heaven people were pulling hideously long faces. Lin Feng turned his head and looked at the people from Jade Heaven while saying in a cold and detached way, "In the mysterious world, fighting and killing people is normal. But here you can't offend someone without seeking the wrath from their group. Perhaps a great war could arise. If I were you, I wouldn't seek excuses to start a fight with me now." The Jade Heaven's leader was staring at Lin Feng. His eyes were filled with murder. He smiled in a cold way and said, "Indeed, no need to find lame excuses. You violated the emperor's vital organs, and after that, everybody was kicked out of the emperor's palace. Doesn't that mean that you obtained the great emperor's treasures?" Instantly, everybody was looking at Lin Feng. Many people who initially didn't know suddenly understood. Lin Feng was too cruel. He might be a genius, but that didn't mean he was a saint. If you were an emperor, would you let other people violate your vital organs, take them and then let them offer your organs to others? Do you think that your ancestor, the Jade Emperor, was so stupid? Said Lin Feng mockingly. The Jade Heaven people wanted everybody to fight against Lin Feng, but he wouldn't let things happen that way. We are the ones who found the Jade Emperor's hall, but the first ones to get inside were from Jade Heaven because the Jade Emperor was your ancestor. He created the Jade Emperor's hall for Jade Heaven's people, his offspring. Your dream has always been to find his grave, right? Besides, there were many cultivators from Jade Heaven in the mysterious world. Who would believe them if they said they had obtained nothing? Nobody. Maybe one of them has even received the instructions and teachings of the great emperor, and is hiding them from everybody now, said Lin Feng, raising ideas in others' heads. Chapter 8:17. Why the Jade Emperor's Heart? The crowd was suddenly feeling doubtful. They were lost in their thoughts as Lin Feng continued speaking. There is something else that you forgot to mention. After Jade Heaven's people entered the Emperor's palace, the entire mysterious world started shaking violently. Besides, Jade Heaven's people wanted to block the entry to the palace so that everybody would die outside. It was us, people from Tianqi, who prevented the door from closing. But all in all, many young geniuses died outside, said Lin Feng calmly. Many eyes were now on the Jade Heaven group. Amongst them, someone shouted, "Jade Heaven has been deceiving people over and over again for so many years. They entered the mysterious world with the help of every influential group in the Ganyu region. Everybody was supposed to join hands to find the emperor's grave, but they wanted to enter the palace on their own while letting our people die outside. Those from Jade Heaven really have no morals or principles. How cruel." Everybody was staring at the people from Jade Heaven. Our young leader was killed in the mysterious world. How could they have possibly found treasures? "I don't think so," said the leader of Jade Heaven, glancing at the crowd. He then turned back to Lin Feng and said, "Everybody listen to me, the last thing that happened was him stealing the emperor's heart. This is what triggered everybody's expulsion out of the mysterious world. Imagine how powerful the emperor's heart must be. Maybe it contains incredible treasures, otherwise, would such incredible events have transpired? I advise you to, at least, make him take the emperor's heart out." Nobody knew who to believe here. Who had obtained the most precious treasures? Lin Feng or someone from Jade Heaven? Let me talk. In the end, we, people from the East Sea Dragon Palace, were in the palace. For the time being, let's not talk about the fact that Jade Heaven's people cheated us. We can settle accounts later. However, Lin Feng really did corrode the emperor's organs. Kong Zhouyi from the Nine Cloud Sword sect and Gu Qianqiu from the Xiaoyao sect can confirm that. I am almost 100% sure that Lin Feng obtained some heaven-defying treasures, said Duan Wuya, looking at Lin Feng and his friends in a gloomy way. He then continued, besides, apart from Lin Feng who obtained the great emperor's heart, all the others from the Tianqi group obtained extremely powerful and precious treasures. Even the Xiaoyao agility technique ended up in that girl's hands. I've seen her use it. Those treasures come from the Zun cultivators' underground palaces. They are extremely powerful, and I am convinced that even strong Tian-level cultivators don't possess such powerful treasures. Duan Wuya was trying to paint a bad image of Lin Feng and his friends. Everybody was staring at them greedily. Apart from the emperor's heart, they had obtained other treasures? Hehe. Our elite disciples should make them hand over the emperor's heart and the other treasures, said the Purple Golden Dragon King, following Duan Wuya. The Tianqi group benefited the most from the mysterious world experience. Did they think that they could get away with it and leave like that? Everybody had greatly benefited from the mysterious world experience. The Jade Emperor's grave appeared, the mysterious world collapsed, and some people obtained Zun-level items. Unfortunately, those group Zun cultivators didn't know these details, otherwise they would have rushed over there and taken the Zun-level items for themselves. You killed our Jade Heaven's people, you stole our crown and flaunted in front of us. Someone from Jade Heaven said, and immediately landed in front of the group of Tianqi people. You stole our Xiaoyao agility technique, how audacious. Someone from the Xiaoyao sect said as they landed next to them as well. I've also heard that you killed some people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. All those people belonging to various groups of influence were looking for an excuse to gather in front of the Tianqi people, gradually surrounding them. The others were strong as well. Silhouettes were flickering one after the other. Everybody was surrounding them, they all wanted to get something as well, the Zune cultivator's treasures, the Jade Emperor's heart. Everybody was dreaming of obtaining such treasures, especially the Emperor's heart. The 7 snow eagles from Tianqi remained silent. Disasters and rewards came hand in hand. Tianqi obtained wonderful treasures which in itself was a cause for celebration, but now everybody wanted to attack them and steal their treasures. Everybody, do you want to create a war between clans, sects, and empires? It looks like you want to start a fight when you surround us like this. One of the snow eagles said coldly. He then added in a voice as cold as before, don't forget that the Tianqi Empire has never been disrespected by others. Why so serious? Tianqi obtained such great treasures, don't be too greedy, let us have some of them. Also, let everybody have a look at the Emperor's heart. A strong cultivator from Jade Heaven said offered indifferently. Those influential groups had always attempted to maintain a fair level of peace. They couldn't let strong tensions arise between them. If they did and a great war started, the results would be too tragic. Those Tian-level cultivators couldn't handle facing those consequences. Indeed, we don't mean to offend the Tianqi Empire. You just obtained too many treasures. We're also curious to see Emperor's heart. The purple golden dragon king continued to play along. How shameless, shouted Huang Fulong furiously. After doing all those things, you still dare say you don't want to offend Tianqi, you're really shameless. Shut the hell up, shouted the purple golden dragon king furiously, staring at Huang Fulong. Who allowed you to open your mouth, little boy? Phew. Huang Fulong sighed with rage while glaring at the purple golden dragon king. Hurry up now, everybody is waiting, said the purple golden dragon king. Everybody got closer to the group of people from Tianqi. If Lin Feng and his friends didn't hand over the treasures, they would attack and steal them for themselves. What if we don't give you anything? Said Lin Feng indifferently while glancing back at the crowd. If you don't hand over anything, we'll attack. Of course, when fighting, sometimes tragedies are inevitable. People from the Tianqi Empire cannot blame us for that. The purple golden dragon king enjoyed answering his question. In other words, you want to kill us, right? Said Lin Feng, smiling as well. He was fearless. I didn't say such a thing, said the dragon king, not admitting what he said, but evil lights were twinkling in his eyes. He was tacitly confirming Lin Feng's words. Okay. You want the Emperor's heart, let me take it out. Lin Feng suddenly became flexible. They all became impatient because Lin Feng was willing to take out the Emperor's heart now. Of course, you've made the right decision. The Dragon King had a smile on his face. Everybody move back at least 1,000 meters and open a way for us. Nobody should stop us from leaving. Then I will put the Emperor's heart on the ground, said Lin Feng. People glanced at each other. It seemed like Lin Feng was scared of dying to them. Of course, they had so many people and 1,000 meters was nothing, so Lin Feng would probably be unable to escape. The crowd gradually moved away of at least 1,000 meters. In the middle, there was only Lin Feng and the people from Tianqi. Nobody was threatening them now. You go first as far as possible, said Lin Feng to the people from Tianqi. Nobody knew what Lin Feng was planning. No, how could we abandon you? Said Tang Yuyu. Don't worry, relax. Just leave it to me. If you do, I have a solution to protect myself. Trust me. Lin Feng encouraged her calmly. Tang Yuyu looked at Lin Feng's eyes and nodded. If Lin Feng said so, then it meant he really had something in mind. Okay, we'll go first. Please be careful. The snow eagles said, turning into animals again. The whole group then rose up in the air and left. The others watched as the snow eagles left. Their eyes were filled with murderous intentions. However, nobody attacked at that moment. They were very far from Tianqi, so they could wait for Lin Feng to hand over the Emperor's heart, and then they would chase and kill them. Lin Feng looked at his group leave and smiled. He then glanced at the crowd and immediately a heart appeared in his hand, the Emperor's heart. Come and take it, said Lin Feng, throwing the heart at the East Sea Dragon Palace people. At the same time, he ran back with his greatest speed. Boom! Boom boom! Monstrous amounts of qi emerged in the atmosphere. Everybody was throwing themselves at the people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Who would grab the emperor's heart first? Lin Feng turned into an arrow and ran away with incredible speed. He just observed all those people gathering and fighting. A radiant smile appeared on his face. Boom! Qi kept exploding in the atmosphere. Terrifying sounds were sounding constantly as a lot of people were starting to bleed or were coughing up blood. In the horizon, a vast palace appeared. It contained imperial qi and looked domineering. It was the Jade Emperor's palace. Chapter 8:18. All inside. The vast palace appeared, propelling everybody backwards. Astonishment had replaced pain in their brain. The great emperor's palace, that's the emperor's palace. The Tian-level cultivators couldn't contain themselves when they sensed the qi emerging out of the palace. They could see the emperor's palace. What's inside? Asked many people to their younger disciples. If they came out alive, it meant that they had entered the palace. Many treasures, intent crystals, abstruse crystals, and many halls which were locked to us, replied the young cultivators one after the other. The Tian-level cultivators suddenly felt extremely excited. In the past, they were unable to enter the palace and could only send Xian-level cultivators into it. There were many other treasures as well. What did those locked halls contain? Those Xian-level cultivators were unable to enter those halls, but what about Tian-level cultivators? Everybody was going insane. They were very impatient to see what those mysterious locked halls contained. Nonetheless, there were also some people who were less excited and remained both calm and detached. Why had the palace appeared? The emperor's heart. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng took out the emperor's heart, and in a flash it turned into a vast palace, blowing them away. The people from Jade Heaven were pulling a long face. They didn't know that the Jade Emperor's heart was a palace. They had heard from their ancestors that kneeling 3 times and kowtowing 9 times before the emperor was enough to receive his teachings and instructions. It seemed like they had received some bad information. Lin Feng, where is Lin Feng? People from Jade Heaven started running towards the location where Lin Feng was standing a moment before. But he had already disappeared. Where had he gone? What do we do now? The people from Jade Heaven looked at the vast and desolate area. They looked back at the vast palace again. They were all confused and excited at the same time. Should they enter or not? Lin Feng had replaced the vital fluids of the emperor's heart with his own, and that heart was the emperor's palace. Didn't that mean the palace actually belonged to Lin Feng now? If they entered Lin Feng's palace, what would it bring them? Let's go inside, the leader from Jade Heaven decided. Even if it was dangerous, they couldn't pass up such an opportunity. Some groups came up with the idea to leave some Tian-level cultivators outside of the palace. Even though nobody was willing to stay outside, they had to in case Lin Feng came back and put the palace away. Those who stood guard outside would be able to kill him and steal the emperor's heart. That way, the situation would remain perfectly safe at all times. Of course, some of those guards couldn't help themselves and secretly entered the palace. At that moment, outside of the palace, Duan Wuye's eyes were twinkling. He didn't enter the palace because he had known Lin Feng for a long time and knew that Lin Feng, with his temperament, wouldn't hand the emperor's heart over that easily. He was completely convinced that Lin Feng was controlling the Jade Emperor's palace somehow. Duan Wuye was jealous. Not only was Lin Feng a genius, but he was also very lucky. Surprisingly, he had obtained the emperor's palace on top of his previous achievements. All the treasures in the palace now belonged to him. It must be that wall, thought Duan Wuye, recalling the carvings on the walls. He had been unable to understand them. Lin Feng was the only one who understood the carvings in the wall. It's not that easy to obtain the treasures inside the palace, whispered Duan Wuye. So many Tian-level geniuses had just entered the palace, it was useless for Duan Wuye to enter. Besides, he knew how smart Lin Feng was. People in the palace were going insane, especially those from Jade Heaven. Those who had already been inside were leading the way, running towards the Jade Emperor's hall. They wanted to see the Jade Emperor and find his teachings. When they finally made it to the hall though, They found that the Jade Emperor's body wasn't there. The Jade Emperor's hall was completely empty. You said that Lin Feng studied the carvings on the walls first and then studied the skill and stole the Emperor's heart. Where exactly did that happen? Asked the leader of the group. Everybody just pointed at the mysterious scriptures on the walls. The leader walked around inspecting the walls and shivered. What powerful words. According to the legends, nobody can understand the demoniac emperor's writings. Could those have been written by him? Whispered the leader of the Jade Heaven group. But why would Lin Feng understand the demoniac emperor's words then? Could it be that Lin Feng and the demoniac emperor were related? At that moment, he was realizing that the demoniac emperor of the legends and Lin Feng seemed similar. They were all insufferably arrogant, despised the entire world, and once in a while entered a frenzy which only ended with blood. They were fearless. Lin Feng really resembled the demoniac emperor of the legends. Outside of the palace in the very horizon there was someone on the ground. His long robe was fluttering in the wind. He walked towards the palace, looking calm and detached. Lin Feng. Somebody gazed into the distance and saw Lin Feng walking back. Lin Feng was walking neither slow nor fast. He gazed at the people in the distance as well as at the palace. He didn't look worried at all. Finally, he arrived near the palace and looked at the people next to it. He smiled coldly and said, "You want me to die and you want to steal my palace. That's no problem. I will allow you to spend plenty of time in it." After that, Lin Feng shook his hand as terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the atmosphere. The boundless palace turned into a heart and immediately flew back into his hand. Those who had thought it through earlier were lucky. Lin Feng had replaced the blood in the heart with his own and gained ownership. Everything inside the palace was his. The emperor's heart was the emperor's palace and Lin Feng could now control it freely. Were the people inside going to be stuck inside forever? There were more than 20 people standing outside with Lin Feng. Many of them were cultivators of the Tianqi layer. They all threw themselves at Lin Feng. Their eyes were filled with murderous intentions. "You really want to kill me?" Lin Feng said, smirking slightly. They looked perplexed as they stared at Lin Feng coldly. Of course they wanted to kill him. Did you ever think that if you obtained the heart, the people inside would be under your control? Their lives would be in your hands and you would gain a lot of power, said Lin Feng. His words sounded really tempting. Chapter 819. The Palace's Explosive Power. Humph, we won't fall for your trickeries this time. The crowd was glaring at Lin Feng. They would love to have the power Lin Feng spoke of, but if they wanted to obtain the emperor's heart, they had to kill him. Lin Feng had to die. How could they control the emperor's heart, the palace, if Lin Feng was still alive? I know what the problem is. You don't know if you should kill me or steal the emperor's heart first, said Lin Feng with an indifferent smile on his face. He stretched out his arms and the emperor's heart appeared again. He then threw it and said, "You can choose, you can kill me first, but then the heart won't belong to you anymore. Someone else will take control of it." The emperor's heart. Those people narrowed their eyes and threw themselves at the heart. Strong cultivators joined sects, clans and other influential groups to become stronger. At that moment they had a great opportunity to become stronger, the opportunity to obtain the emperor's palace. With it they would be able to surpass the strongest cultivators. Who cared about the sect or the clan if one could obtain such a treasure? Those who entered the palace did it willingly, just like those who decided to stay outside. Boom! Fuck off! A terrifying chi emerged. Those Tian-level cultivators started fighting. Their chi created a storm in the area and whistling sounds pierced eardrums. The ground was shaking violently. Everybody had only one thing in mind, the emperor's heart. At that moment Lin Feng was standing there calmly. He silently observed the insane battle as if it had nothing to do with him. They noticed that Lin Feng wasn't leaving, so they continued fighting over the emperor's heart. If they could obtain the emperor's heart and then kill Lin Feng, the palace would belong to them. Duan Wuya was quite far on the other side. He hadn't left either. He was watching those Tian-level cultivators battling. Lin Feng had matured since he first met him. He was able to set up plots and manipulate others. Coupled with his incredible talent and abilities, he was a large threat. A glacial light appeared around Duan Wuya's body, making him feel very cold. That coldness was piercing to the bones. Duan Wuya knew that Lin Feng wanted to kill him, but he wouldn't give him the opportunity to do so. Killing Duan Wuya wouldn't be that easy. Die! Shouted an ice-cold voice. A hand then penetrated into a Tian-level cultivator's body and blood splashed all around. A Tian-level cultivator just died, however. The emperor's heart was, as before, on the ground. You will die too. A sharp sword emitting whistling sounds immediately crashed into that person's back. After killing that person, the sword started vibrating and cut up the enemy's body further. Then the person turned around and released some terrifying sword lights which immediately cut another person's hand. The emperor's heart is mine, they were crazed. That person used an agility technique to grab the emperor's heart. Someone from Xiaoyao. The crowd was surprised. The one with the sword was still fast. Their sword was lacerating the air around them. Vizi. The person from Xiaoyao used another agility technique and turned into a few dozen shadows. Each shadow looked like a real body. It seemed that they mastered the technique to perfection. Zirr. The terrifying sword chi immediately chopped a dozen shadows. However, the other shadows were still running towards the emperor's heart. Stop! More rumbling sounds spread in the air. A powerful hand fell to the ground. That hand was the size of a large mountain, capable of crushing everything underneath it. Another dozen shadows disappeared in a flash. A silhouette streaked across the sky as the emperor's heart disappeared. The Xiaoyao person's shadows all target Lin Feng now. If they managed to kill Lin Feng, they would take control of the emperor's heart. How fast? Lin Feng was praising the Xiaoyao cultivator. Lin Feng looked expressionless, but in his heart, he was a bit surprised. That agility technique was incredible. It was the real Xiaoyao agility technique, graceful, agile, and possessed a subtle power. Die! A hand appeared and made an attempt on Lin Feng's life. The atmosphere was shaking and things seemed like they were going to explode. That cultivator wanted to kill Lin Feng with one attack. Boom! The emperor's heart turned into a palace again, and fell onto the ground in the blink of an eye. The Xiaoyao cultivator who held the heart was propelled so far away that nobody knew where he landed. The ones who were fighting for the heart were also propelled away. Lin Feng motioned again and the emperor's heart turned into a heart again and fell from the sky. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered as he grabbed the heart. He looked in the horizon and saw some people coughing mouthfuls of blood. Lin Feng smiled mockingly and said, "You guys are really dumb." If they had decided to try and kill him first when he threw the heart, the others would have had the opportunity to steal the heart and escape. Therefore, they had decided to steal the heart first and then kill Lin Feng. Unfortunately, they had forgotten that Lin Feng could control the emperor's heart. Even if they stole the heart, was it helpful? Lin Feng could make the heart turn into a palace and vice versa as he wished. Some people were struggling, crawling on the ground, all pulling long faces. Their silhouettes flickered as they came back for Lin Feng. Their facial expressions looked hideous. Lin Feng was playing around with them just like toys. They now realized that as long as Lin Feng controlled the heart, he could make it turn into the palace as he wished and send them flying. No wonder Lin Feng was fearless, it was because he already thought through all the scenarios. Do you understand now? Lin Feng was smiling, adding, "Do you still want the emperor's heart? Let's attack him together and kill him." Those Tian-level cultivators glanced at each other and understood what they had to do. The only solution was to join hands, kill Lin Feng and then steal the heart. Die! 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 Furious voices were echoing one after the other in the vast area. Lin Feng was thousands of meters away but could still sense their murderous intentions. A sword started dazzling even though it was thousands of meters. The Xiaoyao cultivator started moving faster and faster. Another series of shadows appeared in the air. They all looked exactly the same as him. Boom boom boom. Terrifying collision sounds resonated. A terrifying oppressive energy invaded the atmosphere. In a flash they were very near Lin Feng. However, just as quickly they were thrown away again and crashed into the ground. The faster they were, the more brutal the shocks. Lin Feng was still immobile. He looked calm and serene. He was staring at the silhouettes covered by blood in the distance. A bunch of morons. Shall we continue? Lin Feng sounded perfectly calm while watching those people crawling on the ground. He looked like he wanted to burst out in laughter because of their stupidity. Indeed, he was really playing with them like a kid with their toys. The palace was an incredible weapon. With that palace, who could kill him? The Tian-level cultivators stood up again, pulling long faces. All those Tian-level cultivators couldn't stand being made fun of. They were furious. You have to die. Those people glanced at each other. They didn't need to talk. They understood each other. If Lin Feng didn't die, they would go back to their sector clan and everybody would know about their failure. Lin Feng had to die. They would chase him until the ends of the earth. Even the Tianqi Empire was unable to protect Lin Feng. Let's go, some people said while rising up in the air. They wanted to leave. Lin Feng glanced at those people and smiled coldly. Go? You failed to kill me and now you want to leave? Lin Feng jumped up in the sky with incredible speed. His entire body was surrounded by terrifying energies. Nobody is leaving, you're going to die. Lin Feng then turned into a hurricane and shot out at the Tian-level cultivators. From the Emperor's heart, an infinite amount of imperial qi emerged. Terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the air as the palace appeared again and fell down from the sky. The ground shook so violently that it seemed like there was an earthquake. A palace falling from the sky and crashing into the ground, how terrifying was that? A gigantic fissure appeared in the ground and many small ones appeared all around it. Chapter 8:20 Fighting Beasts. Just as quickly as it appeared, the palace disappeared again. There was a gigantic fissure in the ground and several corpses. They had all died from the weight of the palace. They wanted to escape? Would Lin Feng let them off that easily? Lin Feng, threatened by all those influential groups, risked his life to let his comrades from Tianqi leave. He decided to stay there alone and face those people. Besides, he was forced to use the power of the Emperor's heart, therefore, he had to kill all those who had seen it. Lin Feng could control the palace and nobody knew how many treasures were inside. If the news spread, it would draw everyone's attention in the Ganyu region, and the strongest cultivators would come to Lin Feng's front door trying to kill him. Zun cultivators would attach plenty of importance to what happened in the mysterious world this time, because the Emperor's grave appeared. Cultivators had been going there for hundreds of years, but the grave never appeared. If the news spread, the same thing that happened to the great emperor would happen to Lin Feng. He would be chased and would face a dead end eventually. He would have to hide in the palace and close it off, waiting to die inside. Those who knew the palace's secret had to die. Boom! A terrifying sword chi dashed to the skies. The strong cultivator of the 9 Cloud Swords sect hadn't died. He emerged out of the ground and at the same time glanced at Lin Feng coldly. His eyes were filled with murder. Fortunately, he acted fast and dived into the ground where he was mostly protected from the impact. However, his vital organs were damaged and he almost died. Even if we can't kill you, don't think that you can kill us. You might be a genius, but you won't be able to keep the palace a secret. Everyone will know about it and they will kill you. The cultivator from the 9 Cloud Swords sect said while coughing mouthfuls of blood. His tone of speech was cold. He released sword chi and made a hole in the ground. He wanted to escape using an underground road. I can't kill you guys? Lin Feng was still smiling. He moved his left hand and in a flash, a snowy tower appeared. Inside the tower was an incredible bestial chi, as if it caged incredible beasts. Snowy animals were roaring, barking, etc. inside. The 2 strong cultivators under it didn't know what to think. Lin Feng had other treasures to fight them with? The remaining 2 cultivators were going insane. What a fucking bastard. They were Tian-level cultivators, they were supposed to be stronger than Lin Feng. But Lin Feng kept playing around with them and humiliating them. They were injured by Lin Feng even. They were bleeding profusely. Now Lin Feng had even more ways to play around with them. Roar! Some terrifying sounds made the vaults of heaven tremble. The earth was crackling and huge fissures were appearing. 2 terrifying beasts appeared in the air. Both were gigantic. One of them was a gigantic rock. Its black wings were flapping slowly. Its 2 eyes looked utterly frightening. That beast was a Tian-level beast. Besides, next to that rock, not far away, there was the beast which had roared and made the earth crack a moment before. Its chi was explosive and rolling in waves in the atmosphere. Its entire body seemed to be filled with an infinite amount of physical strength. It was a violent bear. What terrifying beasts! Lin Feng could also control such terrifying beasts? The gigantic rock and the violent bear were staring at Lin Feng with their ice-cold-looking eyes. Their chi was rolling in the atmosphere. Kill those two. Lin Feng ordered the beasts. The two beasts were Tian-level beasts, so of course they could understand people. However, the beasts acted like they didn't understand what Lin Feng said. They just stared back at Lin Feng with their gigantic eyes. The Great Mother had educated them, so they weren't going to attack Lin Feng. They could only obey orders. However, Lin Feng hadn't broken through to the Tianqi layer yet. How could he give those beasts orders? Would they obey him, even if the Great Mother had given them to him? Kill those two. Lin Feng's voice sounded firm this time. The two beasts seemed to understood that they had made him furious. Roar! A monstrous chi came out of the bear's nostrils. It was still staring at Lin Feng. Okay, the rock said to Lin Feng. The rock was under Lin Feng's control. The Great Mother had put them in the tower and had given the tower to Lin Feng. If Lin Feng wanted, he could keep them inside the tower forever. They hated staying trapped in that tower. It turned its head and stared at the Xiaoyao cultivator. It flapped its wings and created a hurricane. Go! The cultivator of the Xiaoyao sect and the 9 Cloud Sword sect were terrified. Both of them turned into rays of light as they ran off in opposite directions. The Xiaoyao cultivator was particularly fast, already a few thousand meters away. It seemed like he was following a particular pattern with his particularly graceful movements. A terrifying roar spread in the air, scaring the Xiaoyao cultivator from head to foot. He was fast, extremely fast, but the rock was a flying beast and speed was its strength. Nobody could imagine how fast a rock could be. Even a Xiaoyao cultivator couldn't match a rock in speed. Its claws were dazzling to the eyes. It seemed like 1,000 swords appeared in the sky and were targeting the Xiaoyao cultivator. It seemed to be one of the special abilities of the rock. The Xiaoyao cultivator was going insane as he accelerated. But those terrifying claws immediately crashed onto his head and killed him. The Xiaoyao cultivator didn't even have time to dodge. The violent bear was on the other side. Even though it wasn't as fast as the rock or even the 9 Cloud Sword sect's cultivator, its physical strength was amazing. Even though it was running in the sky, the ground was shaking. The physical strength was so incredible that it was hurting the 9 Cloud Sword sect's cultivator's internal organs, preventing him from moving at full speed. The terrifying beast was closing in on him. The frightening physical strength was becoming even worse. The 9 Cloud Sword sect's cultivator turned around. His facial expression looked ice-cold. A terrifying sword chi appeared in the atmosphere. Considering the fact that he couldn't escape, he had to face the beast head-on. Die! A sharp sword appeared. It looked to be an ultimate skill. The sword immediately crashed onto the beast's body. Roar! The violent bear roared violently while looking at the sky. It punched the air with its gigantic paw. Crackling sounds spread in the air. The bear had broken the sword. Instantly, the 9 Cloud Sword sect's cultivator turned deathly pale. The bear's paw contained a terrifying, oppressive physical strength. Roar! The bear opened its gigantic mouth and roared again. The earth and the sky shook violently. The sword cultivator was struck by the bear's paw and died. That paw contained such a monstrous physical strength. Nobody could imagine challenging it. Chapter 821 Chase and Kill. After chasing and killing those two, there was only one person left in the sky. He had witnessed everything with his own eyes and he knew almost all of Lin Feng's secrets. Duan Wuya's heart was shaking. He couldn't process all of this. Lin Feng could use the Jade Emperor's heart and imprisoned everybody. Not only that, he had a tower which possessed ferocious wild beasts. He commanded 2 beasts, a violent bear and a rock which could kill 2 Tian-level cultivators. Lin Feng's methods would make Duan Wuya shiver. Duan Wuya's heart was filled with an infinite coldness. I thought you were going to escape, said Lin Feng indifferently. Lin Feng's calmness was terrifying. Duan Wuya could feel Lin Feng's murderous intentions in that calm and indifferent voice. You understand that I could let anyone off but you. I will definitely kill you. I know, said Duan Wuya smiling and nodding. Lin Feng, you have become monstrously strong. With you around, I will never achieve inner peace. Lin Feng was confused. Did Duan Wuya still think that he was going to live on? Therefore, I will tell everybody in the world that you obtained the Jade Emperor's heart because you have to die. I will feel peaceful and reassured only if you die. Duan Wuya said as if he had understood what Lin Feng was thinking. Lin Feng frowned. Duan Wuya was surprisingly acting like he could get away? Do you think that you will be able to escape alive? Lin Feng asked. He didn't understand why Duan Wuya sounded so confident. Duan Wuya smiled resplendently and stretched out his arm. In his hand appeared the gloomy gourd. It appeared to be growing. After a moment Duan Wuya sat down inside the gourd. Lin Feng, the treasures which belong to the Zun cultivators are not as simple to understand as you imagine. Even if you obtained one, you wouldn't be able to understand it fully right away. I've been using this gourd constantly since I obtained it. It seems I forgot to tell you that the gourd is not only a weapon, it is also a flying object. Duan Wuya snickered. He condensed more pure qi as a myriad of mysterious marks appeared. Holy marks. See you, said Duan Wuya cheerfully. A dazzling light appeared and in a flash, the gourd streaked across the sky. In a flash, Dan Wuya had already traveled to the horizon. Lin Feng was stunned. No wonder that Duan Wuya had been acting so confidently. It was because he had that gloomy gourd. He was hiding the secrets of the gourd the whole time because he predicted that he would have to face Lin Feng and would have to run away if he wanted to live. Lin Feng moved his arm. Rumbling sound spread in the air as the bear flew back into the tower. Then Lin Feng abruptly jumped onto the rock's back and said, "Chase him." The rock started flapping its wings and a terrifying bestial qi swamped the area. Lin Feng obtained the Jade Emperor's palace and nobody could learn about it. He had to chase and kill Duan Wuya, otherwise the news would spread and everybody in the Ganyu region would want to kill Lin Feng and steal his treasures. Duan Wuya wasn't feeling as calm and detached as he looked. Sitting in his gloomy gourd, his facial expression looked solemn and grave. Back then, Lin Feng was so much weaker than him. Duan Wuya didn't fear him at all and used to play around with him. Now the circumstances were different. Duan Wuya couldn't act like that anymore because he was afraid of Lin Feng. Lin Feng could kill him. Just like he told Lin Feng if Lin Feng didn't die, he would live in fear for his entire life. Duan Wuya could sense a bestial qi behind him. His heart started pounding harder. He turned his head around and saw a huge legendary rock gaining on him. It was incredibly fast. Its two wings were flapping with incredible strength. It was much faster than the gourd he was riding, especially seeing how he couldn't control the gourd that well yet. He put his hands on his gourd and increased his speed. Magnificent dazzling lights were twinkling. The gourd became even more distinct as the atmosphere was shaking. In the blink of an eye, Duan Wuya disappeared into the horizon again. If Duan Wuya managed to maintain that speed, the rock wouldn't be able to catch up with him. But Duan Wuya wasn't strong enough to keep condensing pure qi at that level. In a short time, the Tian-level rock started gaining on Duan Wuya again. Duan Wuya looked terrified. Damn rock! Its speed was incredible. Duan Wuya wouldn't be able to escape, it seemed. I need to reach the East Sea Dragon Palace before I use up all my pure qi reserves, thought Duan Wuya while remaining determined. As long as he could make the holy marks of the gourd shine, he could evade Lin Feng. Duan Wuya just had to maintain a certain distance between them. If Duan Wuya managed to do that and reach the East Sea Dragon Palace, then Lin Feng would definitely die. Lin Feng was standing on the back of the rock steadily. His entire body looked like a sharp sword. He was ready to attack. He just had to get close enough to Duan Wuya and he would be able to kill him. At such speeds, they had already left the vast and desolate area and entered the Ganyu region. There were 18 empires of average quality, but they also controlled many empires. Each of those 18 empires was extremely influential and powerful. The East Sea Empire was one of them and was boundless. It had 3 empires of lower quality under its jurisdiction, and those empires had many countries under their control. The East Sea Empire was extremely powerful, namely thanks to the East Sea Dragon Palace, which was, to a certain extent, ruling over the empire. The Dragon Palace was situated above the East Sea. It was a gigantic, imposing, lofty and magnificent island. It looked as mystical as it did magical. Amongst all the buildings, there were 5 which were particularly magnificent. 4 of them were in the north, south, east and west, making the center look incredibly vast. At that moment, in that middle building there was a stone stage with people on it. They were playing chess, but they didn't look that motivated. They were just staring blankly at the game. Our purple golden dragon king brought those people to the mysterious world a long time ago already. Why don't we have any news from them? A middle-aged man wearing a dragon robe said, looking worried. It's probably a good thing if they are spending a long time in the mysterious world. It means they are getting treasures. You remember when we went there last time? We have their soul jewels even though some people died. Ao Jiao and the others are still alive, so they must still be hunting treasures. Someone else said. Those who had entered the mysterious world left their soul treasures behind before entering so others could know if they were still alive or not. Even though the soul jewels of the strongest disciples hadn't broken, they were stuck in Lin Feng's palace forever. Chapter 822. Killing Duan Wuya. After 2 days of running, Duan Wuya had already turned deathly pale. No matter what, he wasn't able to escape from Lin Feng. Lin Feng wanted to kill him no matter what. They were both aware that only one of the two would survive after this ended. Duan Wuya continued slapping his gourd with his hands to increase his speed. The holy marks on the gourd were dazzling and Duan Wuya had reached the Ganyu region, but unfortunately, his pure qi couldn't power the gourd to its fullest anymore. Otherwise, he would have managed to escape. Duan Wuya's pure qi reserves were already almost empty after 2 days. At that speed, I need 2 more hours to reach the East Sea Dragon Palace, and my pure qi reserves can only last long enough for 2 more hours, thought Duan Wuya, trying to control his pure qi. Unfortunately, he was slower now and the rock was inching forward closer and closer. Duan Wuya had no choice but to struggle for his life. Lin Feng was, as before, standing on the rock's back and his entire body looked like a sword. It seemed that his condition hadn't changed during those 2 days. He didn't move, he wouldn't even close his eyes. Duan Wuya was feeling desperate when he looked back at Lin Feng. Nobody was able to influence Lin Feng at this juncture. Duan Wuya had to die for what he did in the past. They had already reached the East Sea Empire. Duan Wuya was flying downwards, hoping to draw people's attention. There were many people on the ground watching the two silhouettes, but after sensing the Tian-level rock's qi, nobody wanted to interfere. The wind created by the rock's wings felt like razor blades on their bodies. Duan Wuya couldn't shout Lin Feng's secret chaotically either because he had to focus on his safety and be extremely prudent. Talking would only distract him. Duan Wuya had achieved so much in this life, how could he die now? Someday he would take control of the East Sea Dragon Palace and would become the ruler of the East Sea Empire. The buildings of the floating island appeared in Duan Wuya's field of vision. The island was extremely vast. Duan Wuya suddenly felt hope again. He breathed deeply. He had used so much energy that he could barely breathe. He wanted to shout, but he didn't possess the strength to shout. Vizzy! A terrifying storm had invaded the atmosphere because of the rock's wings. Many people on the island raised their heads when they sensed it and saw the pursuit. Duan Wuya had used his last bit of pure qi, but couldn't make the holy mark shine anymore. A buzzing sound spread in the air as the gourd moved a little bit more forwards. Duan Wuya was soon going to arrive in the northern palace. There were extremely strong Tian-level cultivators inside. Bzzz. Zzz. The Tian-level rock didn't flinch while it followed Duan Wuya. If Lin Feng made a mistake in the East Sea Dragon Palace's territory, he would die. No matter what, Lin Feng had to kill Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya? Finally, when they arrived in the northern palace, some people recognized Duan Wuya. Some people in the sky asked Duan Wuya, "What's going on?" Duan Wuya looked deathly pale. He didn't say anything and just passed out in front of them. Duan Wuya knew that those few people were doomed. As expected, those people died in the rock's claws 2 seconds later. "Save me!" Duan Wuya used all of his pure qi to shout loudly, begging for help. He then immediately fell down in the gourd. However, people heard him from very far away. What's going on? A few Tian-level cultivators heard his voice and stood up in the blink of an eye and rose up in the air. They were astonished when they saw Duan Wuya, for he had come back from the mysterious world and on top of that, alone and chased by someone. "Stop! A few silhouettes appeared in front of the rock. Its chi invaded the entire atmosphere. It was extremely sharp. Its wings were extremely sharp as well. Rumbling sounds spread in the air. One of the Tian-level cultivators got slapped by the rock and was propelled far away. Besides, Lin Feng jumped off the rock's back at that moment. The chi of a million swords appeared in the atmosphere, and it seemed like his entire body had turned into a sword. Who dares to come cause trouble in my palace? In the distance, a terrifying voice spread in the air, piercing through Lin Feng's eardrums, so much so that it hurt. However, Lin Feng's sword energy was as vigorous as before and just as dazzling. Sword formula. Man and sword fusion. Lin Feng's body turned into a sword. It seemed like he and his sword had become one. Lin Feng obtained the jade. Slash. The terrifying sword chi struck his back. Duan Wuya shook from head to foot and couldn't speak anymore. He was dead. You want to die? Shouted the voice in the distance furiously. Surprisingly, someone dared to enter the East Sea Dragon Palace and kill their people. What a humiliation for their group. Boom! The rock bombarded a few Tian-level cultivators and flew back to Lin Feng. It then grabbed him and left again at full speed. Where are you going? A silhouette arrived just as quickly. The person shook their hand and in a flash green coffins appeared. They launched out at Lin Feng. If they caught him, he'd probably die. The rock turned around and broke the coffins with its claws. Even though it wasn't Lin Feng's pet, it perfectly understood that its little sister and Lin Feng's relationship was incredible. If Lin Feng died, their mother would be furious. The coffins turned into vines which surrounded the rock's wings and tried to prevent it from flying. Moron! Break! Shouted the cultivator with the coffins. Their voice sounded like that of a dragon. They wanted to kill the Tian-level rock. Zirr! Brr! Blood appeared as the rock began losing feathers, which slowly fell from the sky. Hey! The rock emitted a furious sound. A terrifying light appeared around it as it flapped its wings again. Could still fly at an incredible speed. The one wearing the dragon robe wasn't ready for that. That Tian-level beast was too strong. Its wings had been injured severely, but it could still fly. On top of that, at its full speed. The dragon robe wearing cultivator couldn't catch up with him anymore. However, he was convinced that the rock wouldn't be able to fly for long. He jumped towards the rock and then heard a voice behind him. Qingmu, what's going on? The rock has been injured. It won't be able to fly much longer. It has the green coffin dragon chi on its body now, so it should be chased and killed. Shouted the Qingmu Dragon King furiously. In a flash, many people started chasing the rock. After that, Qingmu grabbed the gloomy gourd in the sky and yelled at the cultivators playing chess. Someone invaded our palace and killed one of the purple golden dragon king's disciples. How audacious! Those people were stupefied. The purple golden dragon king was one of the rulers of the islands. How audacious! Qingmu put the gloomy gourd in front of him and looked inside. He was stupefied. The others were astonished too. What an incredible treasure! That is, whispered Qingmu. He then raised his head, glanced at the others and said, a precious treasure from the mysterious world. The one who had just been killed came from the mysterious world. They had finally left the mysterious world. However, why had he been chased to death? What happened? Lin Feng obtained the jade, recalled Qingmu. His heart started pounding. The one who had chased him was called Lin Feng. He had also entered the mysterious world and had obtained the jade. Jade Emperor, said all those people at the same time. Their hearts were pounding. Indeed, Duan Wuya's words definitely meant that Lin Feng had obtained one of the Jade Emperor's treasures. Either a monstrously powerful weapon or an incredible skill. They didn't know that Duan Wuya had meant to say that Lin Feng had obtained the Jade Emperor's palace. Chapter 823. Escape. Those from the East Sea Dragon Palace didn't know the most about the Jade Emperor, but they knew that the people from Jade Heaven were his offsprings. They could also guess that the great emperor's grave that was the mysterious world was the Jade Heaven's ancestor. It was because of this understanding that the strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace paid particular attention to those from Jade Heaven. Back when Duan Wuya said the word Jade, they immediately thought of the Jade Emperor. Even though they hadn't correctly guessed what Duan Wuya meant to say, They at least knew that the emperor's grave was discovered and the one who had killed Duan Wuya was called Lin Feng. That Lin Feng had obtained one of the Jade Emperor's treasures. The one who was killed was a Xian-level cultivator, and was the Purple Golden Dragon King's disciple. He came back to the Dragon Palace, but the others, including the Tian-level cultivators, haven't. Qing Mu said to others, which made them frown. Something terrible has happened. They were guessing the situation. The emperor's grave had appeared and something terrible probably happened afterwards. They wanted to know what happened. Were they still hunting treasures? Why were their soul jewels still intact? It meant that they were still alive, but maybe they were stuck in the emperor's palace. Qing Mu continued to say, "Chase him. If we capture him, we can understand the whole story." Indeed, we have to catch him. Their eyes turned to the retreating Lin Feng. Very quickly, many people from the East Sea Dragon Palace rose up in the air. A terrifying qi was floating around them. There were many Tian-level cultivators amongst those people. At the same time, others from inside the East Sea Dragon Palace began investigating Lin Feng. They wanted to know everything about him. The rock had been injured by Qing Mu, but it could still fly. Its wings were bleeding profusely, and it was losing altitude. "Get back into the tower and have a rest so that you can heal," Lin Feng told the rock. He put the rock back in the tower and flew himself. He soon landed on the ground in the middle of the East Sea Empire and walked into the middle of the crowd. The economy in average quality empires was booming, so there were people everywhere. In East Sea, the East Sea Dragon Palace was almost like a holy grounds. It was like the Lake Tianqi of the Tianqi Empire, but Lin Feng didn't feel like admiring the East Sea Empire. Even though he was in the middle of the crowd, he was still moving at full speed. He had to leave the East Sea Empire as soon as possible. Lin Feng changed his qi and put his hand on his face. In a flash, Lin Feng completely changed and turned into another person. He looked a bit yellow as if he were sick. It was precisely the mask he had obtained from the old man back then. It didn't take long before a monstrously powerful qi was flying above Lin Feng's head. Those people were quick. It might not be that easy to leave the empire. The only thing Lin Feng could cherish was that Duan Wuya hadn't had the time to say anything before his death. People just thought that he had obtained one of the Jade Emperor's treasures. If Duan Wuya had managed to say that Lin Feng obtained the emperor's entire palace, the consequences would have been absolutely terrifying. The Zun cultivators of the East Sea Dragon Palace would have come out to kill him. The people in the sky kept turning around in the sky as they inspected the ground. Lin Feng had decided to walk slower, just like the other normal people. He was walking normally and sometimes glanced at the people in the sky, looking surprised as if he didn't know what was going on. However, Lin Feng soon became worried. Those people weren't flying around anymore. Instead, they were staring at the ground from the sky as if they were sure that Lin Feng had landed. If he hadn't put the mask on, they would have found him already. In fact, it was really that way. They could sense the qi that Qing Mu left, but it was extremely weak. However, it was enough for them to know that Lin Feng had landed. The only problem was that they couldn't recognize him. The rock has disappeared and we can't see Lin Feng anywhere. He's probably using a special trick. A Tian-level cultivator suggested after pondering for a moment. Qing Mu's qi was still there yet weak, which meant that either Lin Feng or the rock was in the middle of the crowd. Maybe the Tian-level rock had turned into a human being. "Everybody disperse," an ice-cold voice rang suddenly. A heavy pressure invaded the crowd, surprising most everyone. The strong cultivators of the East Sea Dragon Palace were extremely brutal. Nobody dared to offend or disobey them. It didn't take long before people started dispersing. There were many people, so things were a little chaotic. The strong cultivators were sensing the qi move around when one of them pointed to a direction and said, "There, chase that person. The qi comes from over there." Everybody stop walking. That person yelled extremely loudly, making the entire atmosphere shake. "Everybody escape. The East Sea Dragon Palace people are going to kill us," someone shouted, and everybody started panicking. "Die!" a furious voice in the sky shouted. Immediately after, a hand bombarded the atmosphere and crashed on a few people, killing them. That made the crowd panic even more. The leader of the group, a Tian-level cultivator, pulled a long face. Things were getting too chaotic. In such circumstances it would be too difficult to find Lin Feng. The group landed on the ground and dispersed. The Tian-level cultivators all moved in the direction that they last felt the energy. They frowned and walked in another direction. They came across a wall but didn't see anyone. On the other side of the wall there was a person sitting on the ground. They looked like a homeless person. They hadn't realized what happened before their very eyes. At that moment, in the sedan chair carrying the bride, someone else had appeared. Lin Feng. Lin Feng put his hand on the bride's mouth and said, "Don't make any sounds. I'll only stay here for a few seconds." The beautiful bride nodded and Lin Feng removed his hands from her mouth. That woman looked quick-witted, pure and innocent. Even though it was her wedding ceremony, she wasn't smiling. It was actually the opposite, she had tears in her eyes. Was she being forced to get married? The woman looked at Lin Feng but said nothing. She smelt really good, which made Lin Feng feel comfortable. It was precisely when he smelt her perfume. Lin Feng stood up. He hoped that her odor would cover his own and that the enemies wouldn't find him. "Everybody stop!" someone shouted outside. Lin Feng suddenly looked panicked and stopped breathing. The woman looked at Lin Feng and her eyes twinkled as if she had understood something. The furious dragon general outside was staring at the sedan chair and slowly walked towards it. Nobody dared stop him when they sensed his incredible qi. The dragon general arrived next to the sedan chair and opened the curtains. He looked inside and saw a beautiful and slim woman wearing wedding clothes. She was looking at him very curiously yet a little bit nervous. The dragon general moved his hand away from the curtains and turned around. He walked towards his flood dragon and jumped up into the sky again. Then he disappeared in the horizon. "You can come out," the woman said after the dragon general left. She was blushing. Lin Feng came out from the backside of her red wedding dress and stood up. "Thank you so much," said Lin Feng shyly. Normally he wouldn't put someone in that situation, but given the circumstances he had had no choice. If the dragon general found him, he might have died. Lin Feng started to leave the sedan chair but the woman grabbed his arm. "You offended people from the East Sea Dragon Palace, yet you still dare go out?" Lin Feng looked at her and said, "You know them. Of course they rule over the East Sea Empire. Everybody worships them in the region," the woman said, sounding rather flattering yet her tone of speech sounded strange. Chapter 825. Lin Feng's madness. Although you say that everybody worships them in the region, from the way you say it, I have the impression that you don't fear them at all. Perhaps you don't like them at all," whispered Lin Feng. The woman looked at Lin Feng. Her lips shook but she remained silent. Then she said, "They reign over this territory as well. Nobody dares offend them here. You are very brave. Now that you have offended them you should stay here. If you leave someone will find you. You should wait until we arrive in the village to run away." Lin Feng's eyes twinkled as he nodded back to her. He was very lucky this time. He avoided a catastrophe twice already, and now he found someone who was willing to hide him. Lin Feng and the woman talked for a while. He learned why the woman didn't revere the people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Apparently, she was from another village not far from this one and was being forced to get married. Those who had forced her family to accept the wedding had to because of their influence. One of their village members had joined the East Sea Dragon Palace and used that influence to bolster his entire village. Now they were tyrannizing everyone in the neighboring villages. Lin Feng heaved a long sigh. No matter where he went, people with power and influence always bullied the weak. "If I help you solve that issue, will someone try to exact revenge?" Lin Feng asked. "It would be useless. The one who wants to force my marriage is the East Sea Dragon Palace member's elder brother. So the younger brother will come to the wedding in person too. I've heard that he is extremely strong and has reached the top of the Xianqi layer. In that village, nobody can challenge him." The woman sounded depressed while shaking her head and smiling wryly. Lin Feng remained silent. After a short time, the crowd arrived in the village. Lin Feng sensed the surroundings and noticed that there were several people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. They were walking around the village as if they knew to look for Lin Feng. The bridal party arrived outside a gigantic manor, where several people were waiting to welcome the bride. There were others to side who looked proud wearing their dragon robes. Someone opened the door of the sedan chair and the bride walked out. One of the East Sea Dragon Palace disciples looked at her face and nodded. She was beautiful enough for his fellow disciple. "Bro, you have good tastes," a young man said to another one before adding, "You should help me find a girl too. Your cultivation is more important," the young man replied while shaking his head. The elder brother replied, "You're right. We are brothers, so there is no competition between you and I." Then he looked at the woman and shouted, "Hurry up and go see your uncle." The girl looked at him and said, "You two are brothers, so if you marry me, he will be my brother-in-law." "We should have been introduced by now." "Shut the hell up," shouted the young man furiously while walking towards her. He immediately slapped her face, making her mouth bleed. He said, "You have guts. My brother is a disciple of the East Sea Dragon Palace. You are already lucky to see him. On top of that, you dare disrespect him. Go and greet your uncle." People around them were laughing. They didn't think this was rude. Being a member of the East Sea Dragon Palace was something to be proud of. The woman looked at her future husband and smiled coldly while shouting, "Do you want a wife or a slave girl?" The man remained silent. He was getting annoyed. If she hadn't been beautiful, he would have never wanted to marry her. "I am accepting you as my wife. That should be an honor for you. Don't act shameless now or else you will regret it during our honeymoon." The man replied coldly, but the woman looked just as angry as before. The proud-looking young man was surprised to see these people. He suddenly lost his arrogance and bowed in front of them, saying, "Hello, teachers." "Teachers?" The crowd was astonished. Those people must be core disciples of the East Sea Dragon Palace. They had an extremely high social status. The groom didn't think that his wedding would attract so many strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Now he was a bit scared. "You can continue what you're doing," one of them said indifferently. It seemed like they hadn't come to appreciate his wedding. They stared at the sedan chair and the people around it. It seemed like they were looking for something. Several people surrounded the chair. The groom nodded and looked at the bride again. He then shouted furiously, "These are strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Hurry up and greet them with respect." "Moron," said the girl. The man was astonished. He raised his hand and got ready to hit her. "Don't," someone in the background said angrily. The man's hand stopped as he saw a young man approach him. "Who are you and who allowed you to open your mouth?" the man said, irritated while walking towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't say anything. The man arrived in front of him and raised his hand. However, a hand then moved with incredible speed and knocked the groom away. "And you little coward, who allowed you to get married?" Lin Feng mocked. The woman was silent as she stared at Lin Feng motionlessly. The groom picked himself up and walked towards Lin Feng, saying, "Don't you know who I am?" "You," said Lin Feng mockingly. Lin Feng raised his hand while the disciple smiled in a cold way. Lin Feng then released some terrifying qi that reached the very top of the Xian qi layer. The woman's face completely changed. She wanted to shout at him and warn him but wasn't quick enough. He raised his arm to block Lin Feng's attack, but the cracking sound of broken bones was heard. His arm had been crushed and he was blown away from the attack. Chapter 826. Demon Sword and battling against the general. Who is he? He is so strong that he can kill so many strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace, whispered the woman. She couldn't understand what just happened. The young man who had hidden with her in the sedan chair was actually so strong. More and more strong cultivators were appearing. Lin Feng, with his wind agility technique, could move with incredible speeds. Xian-level cultivators couldn't keep up with him. Those who were chasing Lin Feng had to all be Tian-level cultivators. "You cannot escape," someone declared coldly in front of Lin Feng. The man was a dragon general holding a dragon spear. He was sitting on a flood dragon, blocking Lin Feng's path. Lin Feng was sure that he was a strong cultivator of the Tian Qi layer because his qi was too powerful. Lin Feng couldn't fight him on his own. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and his animal tower appeared. In a flash, a few terrifying Tian-level ferocious beasts appeared. "Attack!" Lin Feng said with a cold voice. He decided to sit on the rock, which had already recovered a lot from its injuries. Ruhar! The violent bear attacked with its paws. Its steps made the entire atmosphere tremble. The dragon general looked down at the bear, and then his silhouette flickered. His spear was like a flying dragon. A terrifying whirlwind appeared as he released some energies. Boom! The bear retaliated by throwing its paw at the dragon's spear. However, its strength was destroyed by the whirlwind. Crackling sound spread in the air as the dragon's spear penetrated the bear's claw. Apparently it was a very powerful attack. Roar! The bear roared violently as it pulled back its paw. If it wasn't for that dragon's spear, the bear might have had a chance. Now the flood dragon was about to devour the bear's paw. Zirrrr! Fur! The dragon threw himself at the bear as it spat out poison. The dragon's spear streaked across the sky as well. Lin Feng wasn't happy. He didn't want to fight against the dragon general right now. His beasts couldn't even stop him, they might all die there. Lin Feng slowly walked towards the dragon general and released demoniac lights. Die! Lin Feng said only one word. The dragon flood roared insanely as its gigantic body wrapped around the dragon general. Lin Feng released a terrifyingly oppressive and demoniac energy which surprised the general. He redirected his assault at Lin Feng. Lin Feng took another step forwards and released an infinite amount of sword energy. It contained level 7 sword intent and formed a gigantic sword. However, the spear defended and Lin Feng's sword was destroyed. The level difference between Lin Feng and the general was too great. However, Lin Feng didn't flinch. He moved forwards and raised his hands. A terrifying corrosive strength emerged from them. "You're too weak, you're far from being able to compete with me." The dragon general said. His entire body was surrounded by spear energies which were so powerful that Lin Feng's beasts couldn't get near him. "Grab him with your claws!" Lin Feng ordered furiously, while releasing a terrifying amount of demon energy. A gigantic black plate appeared above him. The energy it contained was extremely oppressive. A few letters were carved on it. It was a demon seal plate. Boom boom boom. The demon seal plate rose up into the sky and the sky turned dark. The dragon general felt pressured by the plate. The demon sealing plate was an extraordinary item. Zirrrr! Zirrrr! The demon sword emerged and emitted terrifying whistling sounds. This time it didn't contain Lin Feng's intent. Instead it left Lin Feng and flew away. It streaked across the sky and seemingly ran away. The pressure terrified the general. The oppressive energy was unbearable. He could only watch as Lin Feng jumped at him with a terrifying hand containing a corrosive energy. The hand crashed onto the dragon general's head, and the general quickly died. Oh! The flood dragon behind him raised its head to the sky and roared violently. That beast belonged to a dragon king, and it could despise the world with its strength. It wasn't participating in the battle between the dragon general and Lin Feng. But as the dragon general was about to die, it released a terrifying storm. Those generals were very strong. In order to kill them, Lin Feng had to resort to the demon seal plate. Such a vast battle would definitely attract the other generals from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Lin Feng couldn't afford to linger there any longer. The flood dragons and the members of the East Sea Dragon Palace feared Lin Feng too, so they wouldn't chase him alone. After a little while, Lin Feng arrived in a vast place. It was probably an international territory not belonging to anyone in particular. Lin Feng's was thinking about his demon sword. He had taken a risk and deployed it in order to protect himself from the dragon general. He used intent to counter the corrosive effects of the demon sword, however. It seemed like he missed something. This time, the sword didn't attack his determination. Instead, it decided to leave on its own. Lin Feng gazed into the distance. It had been a long time since he last used the demon sword. You could say they had an intimate relation. Even though the demon sword was dangerous, it was also a precious treasure. At that moment, the demon sword was peacefully lying down in an absolutely silent valley. There was terrifying bestial chi swamping the grounds. The sword was on the ground, calm and twinkling. It held some sharp chi, but it didn't look demoniac at all. If Lin Feng had been able to see that, he would have been speechless. Next to the demon sword was a huge cliff with a stone plate near the edge. It contained a terrifying strength that could oppress anything. including the demon sword. At that moment, a gigantic strength appeared above his head. The dragon general raised his head and saw a small heart in Lin Feng's hand. Lin Feng threw it in the air and rumbling sounds could be heard. The atmosphere was trembling and the dragon general trembled while staring at the gigantic palace above his head. What was that? Lin Feng could control a palace? Boom boom boom. The palace crashed on the dragon general's body and stunned him. However, the gigantic palace quickly disappeared again. Lin Feng arrived above him in the sky, still holding his demon seal plate. The plate contained a terrifying oppressive strength. It seemed like the atmosphere had frozen around it. Boom! Lin Feng's attacks were coming one after the other, overwhelming the dragon general. The oppressive strength made the dragon general wake up. He didn't have the time to react though, as a gigantic hand containing deadly energies destroyed the atmosphere and a horrible shriek spread in the air. The dragon general's head was crushed but his body was still moving. However, the residual corrosive power of the deadly energies reduced him to ashes. That guy excelled at using speed. He had managed to move faster than me, so I had to use the palace. Now the chi of the palace is going to attract other people. I must find the demon sword as soon as possible, thought Lin Feng. Because the guy had come alone, Lin Feng was willing to continue taking risks. Without the palace, he wouldn't survive this bout. The rock was creating whirlwinds around itself. Lin Feng jumped on its back and they continued moving forward. As expected, shortly after they left, the two dragon generals and their flood dragons appeared. But Lin Feng was nowhere to be found. General Feng Sha was killed as well. There is a strong imperial chi left here. Maybe that Lin Feng is using the Jade Emperor's treasure. Let's chase him, but let's be very careful. One of them decided. They then continued moving forwards and chased Lin Feng. Flood dragons were extremely powerful and their speed was terrifying. They were faster than Lin Feng's rock because their level was higher. In front of Lin Feng was the boundless and flat area, in the middle of which was a valley. That valley contained dead chi and roars were coming from it. Lin Feng stopped in the air and stared down at it. The demon sword chi was emanating from of the valley. Let's go, said Lin Feng, and the rock continued. After a short moment, they were in the middle of the valley and Lin Feng came across a tablet. Death was written on that tablet. Lin Feng moved his hand and made the grass covering some of the tablet move aside. Another word appeared on the tablet and Lin Feng could see the whole text. Death Valley. Lin Feng had arrived in the Death Valley. He had already heard that name in the past. Jun Mo, she had mentioned it in the past. Before going to the mysterious world, Jun Mo, she told Lin Feng that there was a gigantic demon seal plate inside Death Valley. Nobody dared to go into the Death Valley because they would probably die. However, the demon sword had ran there, so Lin Feng could only follow it. Boom boom boom. Lin Feng turned his head and saw 4 flood dragons and 2 dragon generals on his tail. Their chi was emitting rumbling sounds. However, they were far away and had stopped outside Death Valley. They wouldn't get closer and remained silent. Lin Feng had entered the Death Valley. That wasn't good. Did he want to die? In Ganyu, the Death Valley was considered very dangerous and a forbidden territory. Nobody went there because too many extremely strong cultivators had gone there in the past to see the Demon of Legends, but none of them ever came back. Chapter 828. Entering the Death Valley, the Dragon General slowly inched closer to Lin Feng and said, "If you enter the Death Valley, you're going to die. Lin Feng, give the treasure you found in the mysterious world and perhaps we can be friends. We would let you live." "Do you think I believe you?" Lin Feng said, smiling coldly. If he gave the palace to the enemies, they would immediately kill him for the same reason he killed Duan Wuya, to shut him up. They couldn't have anyone else knowing about that grand treasure. "You have no choice anyways, but don't worry, we will let you live. We will cripple your cultivation, however." The other one said slowly, "I admire you guys. You fear that I'm going to go deeper into the Death Valley, but you still look so calm and indifferent." said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. He had the Jade Emperor's treasure, and those two were afraid that Lin Feng would take it into the Death Valley. Otherwise they wouldn't have stopped and talked to him, they would have fought immediately. If you enter the Death Valley you're going to be killed by demons, said one dragon general while smiling coldly before adding. The demons in the Death Valley are terrifying. They can eat souls and control human beings, making their bodies become their own. At least nobody really knows what's inside the Death Valley. It could be that everyone is still alive but not willing to leave. I must have hope though, because if I don't go inside, I will die by your hands. Whatever the enemies said, Lin Feng remained calm and indifferent. He couldn't act chaotically. What do you want to do? Asked one of the dragon generals. Move back a few kilometers and I will feel safer. Then I will leave and you will continue chasing me. Lin Feng offered with a resplendent smile on his face. If they moved back a few kilometers, he would have time to react. The problem was still the demon sword. What could he do about it? If he didn't enter the Death Valley, he would lose the demon sword. Dream on, said one dragon general furiously. If they moved back a few kilometers, they wouldn't be able to see Lin Feng anymore. If I enter the Death Valley, will I still be able to give you the treasure? Lin Feng replied, and the others remained silent. If Lin Feng entered the Death Valley, the treasure would become useless. The most annoying part was that the East Sea Dragon Palace people had already been seen in many places. On top of that, many people had died from Lin Feng's hands. They couldn't face the dragon ruler and the other higher-ups without bringing back something. Okay, I accept, the other dragon general said. He glanced at the other general and they said nothing more. They slowly moved backwards. They didn't want to make Lin Feng feel too nervous. The four dragons were following them as well. Busy. In the distance, a terrifying storm appeared around Lin Feng. Sand was floating around in the air, preventing Lin Feng from opening his eyes. Boom! Lin Feng used his power to sense the surroundings and saw a terrifying storm containing a terrifying explosive power and pressure. Go! Lin Feng ordered the rock, putting it away and running into the depths of the Death Valley. Boom boom! A terrifying deadly energy crashed where Lin Feng had been a moment before. If Lin Feng had still been there, he would have died. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough, but he could still sense the deadly energy lingering in the air. He then continued moving towards the depths of the Death Valley. Someone appeared at the entrance of the Death Valley. He could move with incalculable speeds. He was wearing a beautiful and majestic robe, and his chi was incredibly strong. It was one of the Dragon Kings. The strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace were not feeling comfortable in front of him at that moment. He wanted to kill Lin Feng and take his treasure, but he hadn't thought that Lin Feng would notice and evade into the Death Valley. Now he was pulling a long face. He had failed. Even in the antiquity, many strong cultivators had entered the Death Valley and assumedly died inside. Anyone who entered would never be heard from again. Lin Feng took the treasure along with him inside, so nobody could possess the treasure now. At that moment, Lin Feng was being bombarded by the energies from the plate, and ended up deep in the valley. Cough cough. Lin Feng was injured from the enemy's surprise attack. Whoa! Coming from halfway in the sky, there was a strange bestial sound that terrified Lin Feng. Lin Feng fell down deep inside the depths of the valley, soon sensing a powerful death chi approaching him. Lin Feng was probably going to die. The Death Valley, thought Lin Feng. He had just entered and could already sense the terrifying chi. Finally, Lin Feng landed on the ground. He was suddenly surrounded by many ferocious wild beasts. Their claws were emitting metallic sounds on the ground, and their eyes were twinkling with sharp lights. Their entire bodies looked like sharp blades. People die but not animals, thought Lin Feng. Those wild beasts also had death chi surrounding their bodies. They almost looked like the living dead. It seems like the dead can live in this valley, thought Lin Feng. No matter, he was determined not to die in the Death Valley. Chapter 829. Demon Seal Plate. Those beasts were all staring at Lin Feng like he was food. Their death chi was extremely thick. Lin Feng condensed his own pure chi, but he couldn't move fast enough as a powerful death chi crashed onto his body. Lin Feng thought about it quickly and realized that condensing pure qi would open the doors for death qi to penetrate a cultivator's body. The cultivator's bane. Lin Feng seemed to understand why everyone died here. Cultivators could only rely on their physical body and strength, which usually was underdeveloped. A ferocious beast threw itself at Lin Feng. Lin Feng tested whether he could use the strength of the Harukas and found that he could. Suddenly Lin Feng looked delighted. His hand turned into a gigantic hand and assaulted the beast. Rumbling sound spread in the air as the beast was propelled away. Lin Feng's hand felt numb after the exchange. Why was its body that hard? Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and stared at the beast. Its body looked like steel, just like Lin Feng's body did after using the Haruka skill. The beast roared in a low voice as it stared back at Lin Feng. Its forepaws stomped on the ground and it jumped towards Lin Feng. All the beasts around him were releasing death qi as well. Lin Feng felt extremely uncomfortable, like he was suffocating from their strength. Many beasts threw themselves at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes turned black like those of a demon. He made the strength of the Harukas rotate at its maximum potential. "Go away!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. He started punching in every direction. Rumbling sound spread in the air as the strength of the Haruka was rolling in waves. Boom boom. The strength of the Haruka crashed on their bodies and propelled them all backwards. However, the more terrifying beasts got up again. Their bodies seemed indestructible. Those beasts were way too strong. He looked at the beasts and they looked back at him in a cruel way. Lin Feng cursed out loud as he released his demon seal plate. Now a terrifying and oppressive qi emerged. The beasts looked terrified and emitted cries of alarm when they sensed that oppressive energy. All of them ran away. "What a strange valley," whispered Lin Feng. Those beasts were all Xian-level beasts and on top of that they were not high-level Xian beasts. Even so, it was impossible to kill them with his physical strength. It could be that the legends were true. If those beasts have a demoniac soul, then it would explain why they fear the demon seal plate. Thought Lin Feng while gazing into the distance. He could sense the demon sword's energies the closer he got the center of the valley. Lin Feng was walking with difficulty towards the depths of the valley because of the oppressive void. Void that was death. There were many ferocious beasts in the valley and they all possessed death qi. Lin Feng's lungs burned from breathing in the death qi. Lin Feng was dying slowly. Because he wanted to avoid further trouble, he took back out his demon seal plate to repel the ferocious beasts. Lin Feng was walking when suddenly a wind picked up and a black silhouette appeared in the sky. Lin Feng raised his head and became afraid. There were crows everywhere so much so that he couldn't even see the sky anymore. Their death qi entered Lin Feng's body and he turned black. Now he was dying even faster. The death qi from the millions of crows was incredibly oppressive. Lin Feng could understand why it was so difficult to survive the valley, while only relying on pure qi. Using pure qi just accelerated the process. Lin Feng turned into a Buddha Shakyamuni, and diffused magnificent golden lights all around. He looked pure and omniscient. The death qi was quickly banished and Lin Feng could inhale a little bit of fresh air. However, the Buddha's lights seemed to enrage the death qi which turned into a hurricane and began to erode the Buddha's lights. Lin Feng continued to rotate the strength of the Harukas. At the same time, he continued running deeper into the valley. The crows above him didn't intend to let him off. They all followed him deeper inside. Lin Feng was getting desperate as he pulled out the Jade Emperor's heart. He threw it in the air and a terrifying imperial qi invaded the atmosphere, blocking the crows. Lin Feng hid under the palace while he ran forwards. Bones were becoming more common the deeper he went inside. Those cultivators were probably eaten by the ferocious beasts. Lin Feng was controlling the Jade Emperor's palace with his left hand, and the demon seal plate with his right. Lin Feng was pulling out all the stops this time. "I'm very near." Lin Feng could sense his sword. He continued moving forwards as a terrifying demon qi became palpable. It seemed like the pressure was becoming too intense for the Jade Emperor's palace to handle. Lin Feng's Buddha lights became darker, as well as the demon seal plate. A peak could be seen in front of Lin Feng. That peak was actually a huge stone plate as large as a mountain. "Seal." Lin Feng stopped in his tracks and read the word seal on the tablet. That tablet seemed like it could seal anything, and it contained an infinite explosive power. Besides, in front of that huge stone was a sword. It was gigantic. It was the demon sword. Demon seal plate, whispered Lin Feng. It was the real demon seal stone. It was infinitely more powerful than the small one he had, and it contained a terrifying power to match its size. Chapter 830. The silhouette down the mountain. The legends were right. There is a demon seal tablet in the valley, thought Lin Feng while looking at it. It could oppress incredible evil energies. There seemed to be ghosts crying here, as if their souls were filled with infinite rage. Lin Feng frowned, those ghostly sounds unbearable. In the antiquity, the demon seal tablet was a gigantic stone. At some point it broke into several pieces. Lin Feng had only obtained a small piece previously. Death and life, souls, everything turns into void eventually. Nothing can change this in this world. A voice rang inside Lin Feng's head. It was a pleasant voice and Lin Feng suddenly felt very comfortable. Then the atmosphere became calm again. The ghosts stopped crying and the temperature in the valley seemed to become a little bit warmer. At that moment Lin Feng frowned and looked around. Where did that voice come from? Lin Feng stared at the demon seal stone. Qi kept rolling in waves out from it. Was there someone inside the stone? Who? Shouted Lin Feng. His voice spread to everywhere in the valley. In the legends, nobody could live in the valley. But now someone was speaking to Lin Feng. How many years has it been? I would have never thought that anyone would come to the Death Valley again. How many people have died here? Said the voice again. Lin Feng frowned as he stared at the mountain. That wasn't a hallucination. The voice really came from the stone. Where are you? Please tell me, asked Lin Feng while looking at the mountain. Boom boom boom. Rumbling sounds spread in the air, startling Lin Feng. The ground was cracking as the stone moved. It moved. It was moving rather slowly as the ground continued shaking. The stone was rising higher into the air. Lin Feng ran over to the demon sword. But it was also shaking and emitting buzzing sounds. Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at the foot of the mountain. An incredibly oppressive pressure was spreading in the air. Lin Feng suddenly felt like suffocating. His Buddha and his demonic energies couldn't withstand the pressure anymore. The demon seal mountain's strength was too great. Dazzling lights were flashing in the air as the terrifying pressure rose. A golden and gentle light appeared. It was a Buddha's light. Lin Feng was astonished. Could it be that the legends were false and that the one controlling that gigantic stone wasn't a demon, but a Buddha? Lin Feng walked towards the stone and looked down into the fissure in the ground. There was a silhouette sitting cross-legged. They looked incredible, majestic, and was surrounded by a dazzling light. Even though there were oppressive energies everywhere, they seemed undisturbed. They looked pure, as if their heart hadn't the slightest iota of hatred, standing aloof from worldly affairs. Buddha! It was a Buddha! Lin Feng was shaking from head to foot. However, a sound spread in the air. Although the sword was still there, it didn't look as majestic as a few seconds before. So much so that its qi seemed to disappear. That incredible sword qi disappeared without a trace, as if it never appeared in the first place. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.